do it all day long. All right, good evening. We're going to call this meeting to order. This is the regular meeting of the City Council of the City of Cottonwood, Arizona, to be held March 6, 2018 at 6 p.m. And if we could, please have the clerk take the roll.
Councilmember Althouse. Here. Councilmember Henry.
Here.
Councilmember Howdiggy. Here. Councilmember Norman.
Here.
Councilmember Pfeiffer.
Here.
Vice Mayor Allen.
Here.
Mayor Alinsky.
Here, thanks. Please stand and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, up next we have a brief summary of current events by the mayor, city council, and/or city manager. The public body does not propose, discuss, deliberate, or take legal action on any matter brought up during this summary, unless the specific matter is properly noticed for legal action. Does council have anything to report tonight?
I've got a few items. Okay. First of the month, we attended a Dr. Seuss Arizona Healthy Families and First Things First event with yourself, Mayor, Councilmember Althouse, and myself, and it was a blast. It was so much fun. The mayor brought his kids, and they just had a great time. There was I didn't know if you want to speak on this, if it's okay. The Tavern Boutique Hotel had their grand opening, which is wonderful. I mean, it's a beautiful facility. We're so glad they brought it in town. As I understand it, their weekends are booked through April already, so they're already major successful. Colt Cafe had their 1-year anniversary, which we're thrilled. Love the Colt Cafe. And the the Paws on Main down the road here had their 4-year anniversary. So we're always thrilled when a business makes it past that first year hump. And want to recognize them for that. Buena Vista Children's Services had an event earlier this month, educational event for all individuals that deal with children and our teachers, and it was an amazing event. My husband and I attended, which they adored to have somebody there from the council recognizing them. And it was actually a 3-day event, and we just came to listen to a speaker that talked about probably what we're lacking in today's, not just educational system, but the way we communicate. So it was very enlightening. And then I got to attend an event with my husband. Usually it's the other way around. He goes with me. He was invited as a past chief of Jerome Police Department. Clarkdale and Jerome Police Department had their 2nd annual honoring of their officers, which is a really neat event. It was really tender and touching when they talked about some of the things the officers did to earn their ribbons in their honor. So I was very pleased and honored to be there, and we were also honoring the Arizona Rangers. So, busy week.
Sounds like it. Any other council members?
I have a couple of items. I was able to attend the library Know Your Numbers event on the 21st of February, and I was fortunate enough to show up at a time when stemology was just getting started, so I got to kind of double dip with Ryan. He gave me a grand tour of the library, and I got to attend both of those events. The Know Your Numbers event was very well attended when I was there. Stemology was just getting started, so I'm sure they got a lot more people. I saw the pictures as the evening went on, so it was neat to be there for both of those. Adriana's restaurant down the street here hosted a fundraiser for Arizona Spirit, which is our local cheerleading out of Flip City. On the 27th, my husband and I went to dinner to support that, and Vice Mayor Allen also came. She had to get her food to go, so she missed all the excitement of all the cupcakes and the cheers that the kids did, but that was a lot of fun. And then just my normal volunteer work at the American Legion, serving our veterans twice this month, or the month of February twice. That's it. Great.
Any other council members have anything to report?
I'll go ahead and update as far as the intergovernmental meeting. Council members Pfeiffer, Norman, and myself attended, and this is a meeting where representatives of the town of Jerome, Clarkdale, Camp Verde, Sedona, as well as Cottonwood meet and discuss issues facing each of our communities, which, not surprisingly, we share many of them. For example, the status of the challenge and discussions, negotiations with regard to the Big Chino pumping matter. Mayor Doug Van Gossig of Clarkdale did provide a thorough update as to that. Sandy Moriarty, the mayor of Sedona, also provided an update as to their efforts with regard to short-term rentals and what cities can do, or how we can try to recover some of the revenues that our hotels and other lodging facilities are losing due to unlicensed short-term rentals. So it was very informative, and looking forward to the next quarterly meeting.
Great. Okay. Does the city manager have anything to report?
Mr. Mayor, no, I have nothing to report tonight.
Okay. We'll move on then to call to the public, and this portion of the agenda is set aside for the public to address the council regarding an item that is not listed on the agenda for discussion. However, the council cannot engage in discussion regarding any item that is not officially listed on the agenda. So is there anyone in the public tonight who would like to address the council? Okay. You'll have an opportunity later, but this is just for something that's not on the agenda. Then we'll move on. We'll close the floor to the public. Close the floor to the public. Move on to approval of the minutes, regular meetings of January 16 and February 6, 2018.
I move we approve the minutes as provided.
Second.
Okay, Vice Mayor Allen made the motion, and Councilmember Henry seconded it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, minutes are approved. Now we go into unfinished business. There's only one item under unfinished business tonight, and it is possible purchase of a building located at 635 North Main Street, Main and 10th Street, known as Riverfront Commons, and the renovation of the building for a new city hall.
I'm going to go ahead and take this, Mayor.
Sure.
As the council will remember, we've discussed this item recently, and in looking back in history, we've talked about this item in 2007, 2012, 2013, 2014, and we're back today to discuss it again. As you know, we were working with Northern Arizona Healthcare to look at a possible deal in terms of buying the largest building down at Riverfront Commons. The council was also briefed on a kind of a financing mechanism commonly referred to as a trust by Mr. Mangini. And we also, during the last meeting when we talked about this, the council asked if there were potential partners out there that could potentially share space. And I've contacted the county, state parks, Yavapai College, and a couple of others with no interest at this point. And county may have an interest, and the chamber still has an interest in potentially becoming partners. They're probably not a big space user, but they are potential partners. The other thing that we've also looked at is, which is on the agenda later in this meeting, about selling some property that the city owns, including the buildings down here in Old Town, to help with the cost of the rough cut structure, Riverfront Commons. And so that's where we're at. We recently met with Tom Emmon, who is here from Northern Arizona Healthcare, and Mike Mangini, again, to talk about the concept. And I know I've provided the council with a kind of a draft agreement and an amortization schedule and all that would go into that. And again, Mike and Tom are here tonight to answer any questions, but we're probably looking at an investment somewhere around $4.5 to $5 million to include the purchase of the building, the tenant improvements, and also the furniture, fixtures, and equipment that would need to go in there. The preliminary discussion so far has been that essentially, if we went with the trust concept, everything would, all the buildings, all the properties would go into the trust. As those were sold off, that money would be used to pay down the trust There would be a monthly cost, starting out at approximately $10,000. It would, you know, and again, that could be negotiable, because the downside of that is if we're only paying in $10,000, there may be some negative amortization to it as well. So that would be something we would need to look at as also. But the NHA would do the tenant improvements, again estimated at about $2 million. And the cost of that would again go into the trust to be paid down as we sold property or as we paid down the principal. I think I've probably covered the highlights, and I would ask the mayor, because you were in the meeting, if I've missed anything. Rudy was in the meeting, and again, Tom and Mike are here to kind of answer any questions that the council may have.
No, I think you covered all of it. I would like to have Mr. Mangini and Eamon come up also and give a presentation on the concept of the trust. I think it's important for the public to understand that. But, you know, I hope that we've all met in executive session to discuss this, and I think that there are still a lot of questions, so I hope that we've answered some of those questions for council tonight. There's still a lot to discuss, and there's certainly a lot more that, you know, when it comes down to the finer details that we need to iron out. But I think NAH would like to have some understanding of our level of commitment so they can move forward with other potential buyers for that property or not. So I think we're kind of at a point where we need to either say we're interested in pursuing this further and give them a level of commitment, or say we're going to go ahead and back out and then give NAH the opportunity to seek other buyers. So, you know, I will say that I think that one of the great benefits of pursuing this option is that we've really got a lockdown on a lot of property here in Old Town, and I think the city is stymieing economic growth in Old Town, and we've known for years, decades even, that we're going to be outgrowing our facilities down here, and we're certainly bursting at the seams, and we don't have any central location, so at some point we're going to have to make a decision on, you know, locating to a new city hall facility. I don't think that we'll get into one cheaper than this offer that's on the table now. And I think the other added benefit is that we would then be selling off these properties in Old Town on the open market, which is going to help economic development down here. It's also going to tie in with our goal of developing that entertainment district that runs down Main Street all the way to the Walgreens intersection. We'll be lengthening essentially the reach of Old Town if we did locate down to that facility. So there are certainly a lot of benefits, but it's not without some level of financing. And again, you know, I don't think we could have a better partner than NAH in making this happen. But yet, certainly not without some level of financing. So would Mr. Mangini care to come up and explain in further detail the trust concept?
Yes, I'm Mike Mangini, P.O. Box 265, Cottonwood, Arizona. I do live in Flagstaff most of the time. The concept of a trust, you don't see them very often, but they are used in, I call it, complex transactions. The idea of the trust is the properties are going to be exchanged between the city and the hospital are all put into a trust, and as certain conditions occur, those properties will be sold and the money's applied basically towards the purchase price of the new city hall. Now that accomplishes a couple of things. One is municipality in Arizona to dispose of property. Pretty much you have to do an auction unless you fit within an exception. And one of the exceptions is a land exchange transaction, you know, substantially fair market value. The kicker is here as well, it's in the trust, and the new city hall is being renovated. The city's still able to continue using the existing buildings until they're able to transition into the new finished city hall. And I think the other wrinkle is, which is some of the, I'm getting into some of the detail that sometimes maybe is too much, but all this detail by itself is a cumulative thing. But most of the detail is for the benefit of the city. And one of the big items is when you go to dispose of these buildings, you're not just saying, okay, we're going to auction all these buildings off at the same time. That oftentimes creates a economic distress in an area. So these will be disposed of over a period of time. In fact, while the renovations are going on, you may be able to be signing contracts. The trust would be to sell these properties upon the vacating of the properties by the city. And so some of that detail, like I say, is you don't have to go through the auction process. You've gone through that once before. Sometimes people don't show up because the properties have complications, where if you can go in and dispose of the properties over a period of time, yet control the parking. I bring that up because I don't think you want to, Flagstaff, we've gone through that about the parking issues, and I think the city, once you have parking, I don't think you should ever give it up, but that's your decision. But those type details can all be worked out in these documents of what's sold. The valuations of them, I think a lot of these properties, you have to get your fair market value, and Steve will confirm that. You have to get the fair market value for what you're delivering to the trust. And so that's one thing you're going to get. But also in the trust, you will get, if the properties sell for more, you will get the higher number. All right, so if any rent comes in from them in the interim, a guesstimate is these properties would sell over a 3-year period. So you're not saturating the market with a particular building at any given time. And I think that's a positive. So the property you can end up with, I'm going to call it an eyesore because I think it's a very nice building. But it is a white elephant sitting there. And the question is, it's in the entrance to your, I call it prize community. I mean, it's really, the downtown has become a jewel in an economic downturn. It's a lot to be proud of, but when you drive in, you see, gee, you got this nice building, why there's nothing going on with it? So you're solving that problem, and it's also right next door to your sewer plant. You have potential of additional parking, which I think, he asked me what the problem with the white elephant, it probably doesn't have enough parking. I mean, long term, when you build out 55,000 feet of City Hall, I mean, that's long term, because you don't need but a little bit more than half that. There will be a parking issue with that building, but you have the properties right next to it, right across the irrigation ditch to meet whatever needs, 30-year needs the city's going to have. I know we've gone through some discussions in the past, and I don't know which council members have participated in it, but one was to start and build a new facility. And I think the amount was about 18,000 feet, and I think it was about $8 million. This is a lot more square footage. It's pushing 30,000, and it's for 4.5, 5 million with furniture and fixtures. So you're really not, you're getting I call it, in this environment, you're getting a kind of a cheaper price on it. And the trust is, these trusts they're used for, I call it, very complex transactions. The reason is you don't want the title to the property ever changed. So it goes into trust with a trustee. Typically, it's a title trust company. First American, Yavapai, not just right now, I'd pick Yavapai. One is I really admire their trust department. They're very skilled and capable, and they're so local, it's pathetic. So I'd probably pick them. They hold the property in trust, so liens can't attach to it. I mean, it kind of, and they do what the trust says they're supposed to do. I mean, you'd have I call it a committee to make these day-to-day decisions, for the trustee to move forward with the construction and move forward with the sale of the properties. And so all that would go within the parameters of what the council and the hospital agree are the terms. And I think the hospital's putting up the money to make the renovations, and I think that makes it easier at any given point in time. If the city feels it's better for us to get new financing, because I had the discussion with Rudy, they can come in and say, okay, we found a better opportunity just to pay everything off. You would have the opportunity to go and just pay everything off with the hospital, and I use the word be done with it. But I think the concept is something we sit down and go through council, and I'm sure whether Steve or someone else that's dealt with this, they'll feel fairly comfortable with the trust concept. But the number one item is it allows you to dispose of these assets while you're still, Any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Mangini? I have a couple. You touched on, I think, an important point, which is auctioning the properties off versus putting them just on the open market. Currently, if we dispose of properties, typically the city would have to auction them off, right? We wouldn't get highest value for those
Right,
property.
I
So-
think Steve will-
No, it's a public bidding process. It's not an actual auction on the steps of either the old or the new city hall. It's, the threshold is $1.5 million to do that.
Okay,
So any one of the properties that we would be disposing of doesn't meet that threshold.
I see, okay. And so if we were to vacate some of these buildings that we currently occupy, and then before we sell them, lease them, that money would go into the trust then to pay down
Correct.
the full amount? Okay,
Correct.
okay. And then can you talk a little bit about how NAH should be fronting the money essentially for the tenant improvements in that space? Do you feel like that would, our money would go further if we were working with NAH as opposed to the city bidding that out, those
Yes.
TIs?
Yes. Yes. The governmental, when they proceed with something, has a tendency to cost a little bit more.
Okay. And then when can we pay off the trust if we decided to do that?
There'll be a balance that's owed the trust at any given point in time. They say, here's the balance owed NAH, and any given point, if it's paid off, everything in the trust then ends up belongs to the city. So if the properties go in the trust and also decide to pay them off, all the properties would come back through the city.
Got it. But if after all the properties are sold off, then we could then find financing which was more a benefit to the city and then pay that trust off at that point?
I would think so.
Okay.
I would think so. I don't think you're going to go out 10 years, which is a concept.
Got it. Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Mangini? No?
Not for Mr. Mangini, no.
Okay. We would like to have Mr. Inman come up and
Thank you.
thank you very much. Thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Appreciate the time. My name is Tom Inman. I'm the interim director of real estate for Northern Arizona Healthcare, and I think I was back last fall. I think I introduced myself and explained that Northern Arizona Healthcare bought the property 5 years ago under the auspice that we would potentially be utilizing the larger building for some of our programs. And you can see how well that's gone over 5 years. So we're in a position right now. We've strategically have identified, and we'd love to keep you all informed. We do see the city as a strong partner of ours, and as we continue to evolve on our campus, which we have a number of projects that we're doing internally that we think is a great community, great partnership, and we see this as an opportunity that we could offer a means through which that Mike had structured to allow for a smooth transition to the city for its use. And so really the intention here is to come with open arms and say, we have an intention to dispose of the property. Without doing any marketing, we've had a couple of parties come to us and make offers. And so we've held off on any discussions with anybody, and just for the simple purpose of, we'll sell it when we need to, but we want to make sure that we're giving the proper time. So, Mr. Mayor, appreciate your discussion tonight about the level of commitment, but it's really about a commitment to a process, because we recognize this is a pretty significant decision on behalf of the city, and we want to make sure that it's done thoughtfully and that this is a good decision that's made. So the structure is, again, we'd be willing to do the additional funding as a means to bridge the city to hopefully save a lot of costs with respect to initial funding and all the soft costs and everything else related to an acquisition. So it should be economically a very efficient transaction under the structure that Mike has proposed. So I don't know if you have any questions for me.
Any questions for Mr. Inman? No? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Rudy?
I think that would be good. Mr. Rodriguez, would you care to come up and give us your perspective on this?
Member of Council, I'm Rudy Rodriguez, I'm the Deputy City Manager. We've been pursuing this for quite some time, and quite frankly, we've seen, over the last few years, we've seen a lot of city halls get built in a lot of other communities, and nowhere have they come near the cost of this particular proposition that we have before us right now. This is actually whether we go with their financing or outside financing, we all know that interest rates are still low, but they are climbing. And if we do anything at this point in time, there's two things to consider. One is we're not going to get a better deal anywhere else. If we have to buy land and try to build from scratch, it's going to be considerably more expensive. And then secondly is if we wait too much longer, interest rates are going to start to climb on us. I know that we've got basically a balloon payment after a number of years that we'll have to contend with. But even at the 4% interest rate that's being offered by NHS, it's not really a bad deal for us to move forward with this, especially since their idea is by putting up the TI costs right up front, as they'll actually allow us to still be in these buildings and move out of here relatively quick, rather than sitting around waiting for some sort of financing to try to buy land, build a building, and so forth. I know it's going to be a form of debt that we're going to have, but quite frankly, all the debt that we've had, including this one, is for infrastructure and for improvement of city services or city quality, water services, street services. So everything we've put into debt service has been invested in some sort of infrastructure to improve our community. So much like you, I'm not fond of any more debt. However, when we're getting a screaming deal like this, I think it's kind of hard to just walk away from it. I think we need to really sit down and figure out some way to go ahead and move on it as quickly as we possibly can.
And can you give us just a rough idea on what that level of debt is that we're looking at after we sell our properties? And
well, it looks like we're probably going to be, if we sell off all of our properties, it will be anywhere between probably 1.5 and 2.5 million. Depending on which properties council decides to go ahead and pursue and to sell.
And what does that equate to on a monthly basis? I mean, let's just take the average 2 million in debt. What is that? It's a monthly.
It would all depend on, let me just get a quick thing here going. It would all depend on the kind of terms that we would be looking for. And determine, of course, the interest rate at that particular term. So let's just say if we're going to have to go out for let's say a $2.5 million investment, and we're looking for a 10-year term after we've moved in and we've already sold all these properties, we're looking at probably, we're talking annual payments of about $300,000, roughly.
So could you divide that by 12 for me?
Sure, that'd be about $25,000 a month.
Thank you. So I didn't have to break out my calculator.
That's fine, that's fine.
And where does that $25,000 a month come from?
Well, that's one of the things we have to discuss. $25,000, we're in a budget process right now, and some of the things we're going to be bringing up are, capital needs, more operating needs, and also possibly, and this will be one of the items that we'll be bringing up to council, is where do we need to be and where are we going to get the revenues. That's something that we've been discussing, and what we need now is a commitment that we want to do it, and then we'll go ahead and calculate what that means is going to be when we talk about sales tax and other fees in the near future during our budget process.
So this is where I struggle, and we've talked about this in other areas, and I don't struggle with the concept, but I don't go and buy myself a $750,000 house, and then after I've moved into it, figure out, well, now how am I going to pay the monthly mortgage payment? Mm-hmm. I buy what I can afford to live in comfortably. And I know, a city is a little bit different, but $25,000 a month to say, we're going to figure it out in the budget process when we're already talking about cutting things, possibly raising, taxes, possibly cutting positions, cutting back on whatever. It's very hard for me as a council member, also for me as a citizen who lives in this community. And, I'm not, I'm in the upper, 50s, socioeconomic class of when you look at average income, and I have a problem with it. So I don't know how the rest of the council feels about it, but I struggle with a $25,000 a year, or month payment when we're already talking about cuts. Even though it's a smoking good deal, I wouldn't buy that house, even if it was a smoking good deal, if I couldn't afford to make my monthly payments.
And I think it's wise and responsible to have a plan in place prior to making a big purchase like this. I don't disagree with you.
Certainly, one of the things that we've talked about in just recent budget meetings is that council wants to see, before we make any changes on taxes or fees, that we want to see where are we, what are our needs, and this is going to be one of the needs that we would like to go ahead and put into the list of needs that we would like to have, not we as in the community would like to have. And the council has asked us to bring those needs before the council, and also so we can find where we need to be as far as any type of fees or revenue structure. We in a sense are asking that you give us the permission to go ahead and move, or to give us an intent that you are interested in it, so we come down, so we can kind of iron out the numbers and include that as part of the needs that we'll be needing, that we'll be bringing forward to you. We're just trying to match up the needs that we have with the kind of revenue needs that we have for the future.
So Rudy,
Oh,
go ahead, Mayor.
I was just going to say, tonight, we're not saying we're going to purchase this building. There's still a lot of details that need to be ironed out. I think we're just saying we're ready to move forward with our due diligence and finding out what all those details are and whether or not we can honestly make this transaction work. And I think by providing that level of commitment to NAH and our own city staff, then we're going to figure out how are we going to pay for it once those numbers get ironed out. And I don't want to, this isn't something I want to kick down the can, even though this balloon payment isn't for another 10 years. We really ought to have a plan in place now for how we're going to pay that debt down, because it is debt. And even though we have a great partnership with NAH, and this trust concept is a great way to finance this, it still is debt.
I think I would like greater clarification. Perhaps that's better posed to our representative from NAH of what exactly this commitment NAH is looking for from us tonight at this preliminary stage, where I do agree with Councilmember Althouse. We don't yet have, I don't feel as though we have enough information to be able to say, let's sign, but what exactly are you looking for? Because I've got to agree with the mayor and with our city manager's sentiments earlier. I was taken aback to see how many times prior councils before me have been addressing this very issue. Also, talking to our department heads, learning that we have different departments, pieces of different departments spread out in different buildings because we don't have proper space for their needs. Even just walking through when I visited with you last week and seeing how we have people kind of arranged on top of each other in, not literally, but really not as much privacy and workspace as one would hope. This is a pressing need. I do think that this council, if we determine that this is a priority, should be having the discussion of what are the funding mechanisms we need to put in place to make sure that next year's council and the councils 5 years from now are not having the same exact discussion. We have options. I think we all received the same correspondence from a prior person who was interested 2 or 3 times ago in a potential discussion. So it's not as though this is the only way that we can make this work with this trust. We can explore other areas. So looping right back around before I went off on my tangent, NAH, what are you looking for from us tonight?
And that's a great question. It's really a level of commitment for discussions. I mean, clearly, we understand that there's going to be a process that has to be vetted. We have a number of properties and appraisals that you've gone through. Mm-hmm. So it's really just a level of engagement. We're not expecting that we're going to sign tonight and we're going to have a purchase fund and we're closing next month. But we would expect that over the next couple months, we would be able to figure out if this is actually going to work or not. I mean, I think there's a reasonable time frame. I don't have set milestones. I know that there's been some groundwork that's been done with respect to the portfolio that you have. Mm-hmm. So there would be some discussion on behalf of the council as to what assets you do want to dispose, and I'm sure that will have a pretty significant impact relative to what that economic forecast would be. And I think also the same, there's a question about the number of different ways that you could finance this. And I think, Rudy, if I'm not mistaken, I think he may have given you a number, an amortization schedule, if you will, for the loan, for the payment on a 10-year loan.
Yep.
So that $2.5 million, I believe, if he amortized it, was that over a 10-year period?
Yeah.
I believe so.
It was in the packet.
Yeah, and so I guess the only, before we start talking about financing and costs, and that's why I think there's a lot of legwork that has to go into it. As a commercial real estate person, I would suggest to you that this is not a 10-year asset, and that this is something that you would consider to be an asset for the next 20, 30, or 40 years, because it's going to serve the community well beyond that, because the fact that it is sized appropriately for you. So there's a debt conservativeness that I would say that if I were to set a payment, when I bought my house, I paid a 30-year mortgage. I didn't buy it over a 15-year period because I knew I couldn't pay it off. But I knew I'd get the value of it and I'd get the use out of it over a longer period of time. So I was just surprised by the number myself.
So was I
I just ran the math, Rudy, and I was like, wow. So,
But again, we also have some potential partners. We have avenues that we have not yet begun to explore. You're not asking us tonight for a memorandum of understanding or a memorandum of agreement or anything like that. You're asking us in the next 3 or 4 months to have discussions. Council, we have time. If this is something we're interested in, we can form a committee. I'm not savvy on, or I'm not a professional in commercial real estate transactions. We might want to look at, having additional stakeholders or just even appropriate people on a committee to explore different options, not just with this trust agreement with respect to Mr. Mangini, but to see what other areas might benefit the city. And I would be interested in further discussions, but I would want to have some kind of a designated plan so that in 3 months, we had this very similar conversation in the fall. It would be nice in 3 or 4 months to have either a committee or at least even more, and thank you to both of you and to our city manager, city attorney, and our mayor, because this is significantly more information than we considered in the fall. But I do think I would like some additional input, and I personally would be interested if we were to continue the discussion, so long as we're not bound, and neither are you either.
well, and again, I have my process as well. I have to go through a board. I have to make sure that, and at this point, I have the support to continue the discussion. So I don't have all the context and the framework. I'm not familiar with the structure until, Mike explained it to me. So, no, and that's really, if we can set a committee, if we can have discussions, I look at this as an opportunity in partnership, really, to see how do we make this work. So we welcome that.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
The process suggestion I would make that might give NAH some comfort and might be okay for the council is a motion and a vote with respect to directing staff to proceed. I think that would have the council on record, and that would give some measure. The other alternative is just direction, as you sometimes do, but this seems like we're far enough along down the road, and there's, this is a important enough initiative that would be appropriate.
Excuse me, go ahead.
Go ahead, I didn't realize you were speaking.
No, it's all right.
Just before anybody makes a motion, I do have some more questions. I just want to put that out there.
Absolutely.
So,
That's right.
may I ask, my questions aren't for you, though. My questions are probably for Mr. Bartosh. May I?
Yeah, please.
So, and maybe this is the further discussion, Tosca Henry, Councilmember Henry, that you're talking about, but the packet talked about 13 buildings that were spread across, but we're not really talking about consolidating 13 buildings. I did get a list of the buildings with Doug's help and Sandra's help. So, we have the finance HR building, has approximately 8 employees in it. The clerk's office has 2 employees in it. City council chambers has no employees in it, but I agree we need a council chamber or space for us to meet. Admin or Bartosh's area has approximately 4 employees in it. Development, Casey's area in IT has approximately 8, maybe 10 people in it. Utilities and planning, which I call the yellow and green building, I don't know how many people are in that building. Well, there's all the clerks that take money and stuff too, so I don't know how many people are there. But we're really talking about 6 buildings, because we would never move our police and fire, we would never move our rec center, we would move our library staff, our court. I don't think we would move people out of the Mingus Public Works building, Riverfront building. There aren't any employees there, but, and then the Cats building was the 13th, the one I couldn't figure out, and I don't know if there's employees there or if we would consider moving those. But we're really, in my opinion, only talking about 6 buildings. Let's say it's 30 people, let's say it's 40 people. 30,000 square feet, 50,000 square feet is just way too big for 40 people, even with a city council chamber. And so maybe that's part of another discussion, but I just, you know, I feel like we need to look at all of our options, like the option we received. You know, I've said this before, there's other buildings, they may not be as pretty, there's other space, it may not be as beautiful, and this is a beautiful building. It really is, it's a beautiful building, but it's very large. Would we grow into it? Maybe, eventually, but you know, hospitals, they build, and then, you know, my husband used to work, you know, and we used to call it plug and play. They leave the side, you basically take the side off and you attach another tower to it, you know. I mean, there's that concept of buying land and building it as you need it. So I struggle with this because I don't think we need, it's a beautiful building, but I just don't think we need a 50,000 square foot building for approximately 40 people.
Sure.
I agree with what you said, but I also don't know that we have enough information, because it's my understanding we're not just housing people, we have to house stuff. Earlier I referenced our evidence storeroom, and perhaps Chief can, you know, provide information. I don't think that that's a discussion for tonight, though, but as what I would request of any further discussions is exactly what our needs, identify what exactly are our needs. And you're absolutely right, if we don't need 30,000 square feet for the next future, because this is long-term planning. If we're never going to get there, then let's not get there. Let's plan appropriately. But as of right now, I just don't know what exactly we need.
Oh, and I completely agree. I think, again, your questions should be answered.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're looking at, you know, again, providing a level of commitment where we do vet out this as an option. We do have other options. We have a host of other options. This may be the best one, and I think we owe it to ourselves and the community to go ahead and explore this thoroughly. And all those questions that you asked should be answered, and we should consider them before we make a decision. This may not be the best fit. It may not, but you know, it's been really hard for us also to identify partners when we've said, yeah, we're thinking about moving into a big building. You're interested? You know, I mean, there's not that level of commitment where we say, okay, here are really the facts, and this is really the square foot that we need. How much square footage do you need? And we all do our due diligence to figure out, is this a viable solution? We know there's a problem. I mean, that's obvious, but is this the best solution available to us?
And Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Althouse, the concept has always been to try and bring all of our public contact services to this one facility. Now, obviously, we can't do that entirely because, you know, the police department is in the police department, rec center's in the rec center, but, you know, engineering, planning, utilities, all of finance, business registration, all those things that normally citizens contact the city about. It would be nice to have as much of those in one location as possible. Now, the other thing is we have a program, and I think I sent a copy of that to Tom, that programs over 30,000 square feet of need. And that was updated probably about a year ago, and I'll be happy to send that to all the council members so they can see exactly what the need is and what the square footage is. And obviously, if the chamber comes in, then it's probably going to go up by at least a couple thousand square feet from what our needs are. Mm-hmm. So.
I would just add, you know, I've talked to a lot of people in the community, and I wish more, we're full tonight, but it's mostly staff. I wish there were more people here, you know, from the community to speak to this, and maybe we'll have a work session or something to talk about and publicize it. But we're, what are we, 10 square miles, you know, 12,000, a population of 12,000, I think we're 10 square miles. I've asked people, I've gone up and asked them, do you have a problem with the fact that you have to go to a different building to pay your water bill, then you have to go, talk to the police or do this? And they don't, because we're such a small community. And a lot of people in this community look forward to that, look forward to going out, and they go and they pay their gas bill, or they go and they pay their water bill, and I pay everything online. So, but that's part of, and I get the concept, and I get that it would be nice to have. I struggle with, we need it, because I don't think we need the debt. I don't think it's worth the debt. It's not that hard to get around this community, and once you're here for a little while, you learn where to go for what services. But I wish there were more people here who could get up and speak, and maybe it's just the people that I'm talking to in the public that don't mind driving around town.
Right. And please.
No, go ahead. I just said very good to your comments to myself.
I'm very shy about debt myself, but I also know that we have been discussing this for decades. And at some point, we're going to need to incur that debt or start saving now so that in 15 years we can pay cash for all this, or however it works out. At that point, I think it'd be too late, and I think our needs will overwhelm us. It is an investment in a very nice building. I also see it as an investment in economic development of Cottonwood by vacating the properties that we have down here and encouraging that growth that we have here in this historic commercial district. I think that is a solid investment in the future of Cottonwood. And the efficiencies that we'd gain through centralized location, not just efficiencies for our own staff who need to walk across the street. I mean, you add up the amount of minutes that we're either driving from one location to another or literally walking across the street. You add that up, believe it or not, that's a lot of time spent, wasted. That's not, we're not tracking for that. It's not.
It's still going to be, it's not going to be any different. You're not consolidating. You're still going to have most of your facilities on 6th Street. And you're still going to be driving.
Mm-hmm. There will still, you're right, you still will, the street guys will still be located up there, utilities and everything, but also the benefit to the public of having that one-stop shop. I believe there's great benefit to this.
I have a question, and I know Doug can probably answer this. I know when we're exploring this, as far as where employees are, is a little bit different from where the public address is. I mean, we have our yards and things that the public never sees those. But I believe we were discussing at one point moving the water clerks to this building as well. So that's not a building that they would address. We would, because there's storage there and there's other things. And that's the point, is getting all of these facilities that the city, that our city citizens go to, with the exception of police, fire, library, those into one place. So I just wanted to confirm that that was also getting water billing into that area as well.
But they're currently in the yellow and green building, right?
Yes.
Okay, I included them when I included them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor,
Oh, go ahead.
if I could.
Please.
I noticed Mr. Nackert is here tonight. I don't know if he came to speak tonight or just to listen, so, okay, thank you.
You're welcome to address council at any time. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, council members, one of the partners that I failed to mention, and I don't know if Mike wants to talk about this in terms of the art, and, if you're going to talk to the council about what your plan is for that, just as another component, if it's okay with the council, Mr. Mayor.
Certainly.
I have an Austrian uncle that had lived here for 30 years and passed away. And his desire was to leave his collection of art here in the Verde Valley. Now, problem with that is it's just not that easy. Here's some gallery art, but there's one particular artist that my sisters have been to the gallery in Italy. I have not. But it was a famous Jewish artist that was killed in the Holocaust. And his paintings are hanging there. And they say, well, actually, the better paintings are here in Arizona. But he does have some good quality stuff that would be part of, a concept of an artist to attract people coming to the wine district and be able to have what they call artists in residence. because there were a lot of artists. My mother was an artist, but she had kids, and we kind of controlled her life. But her friends didn't have kids that controlled her life. They became very, very accomplished artists, and this is from the 60s, and they create a lot of economic vitality, particularly in the Sedona market. And I think the same thing could happen easily here in Cottonwood, because there are a lot of talented artists here. Sometimes they need to have a little lift in their display to become very, I use the word precious, and not, you know, selling their art very cheap. So that is something that could deliver to the site with some money also to do renovations and stuff associated with it. And I would estimate it would need a pretty large space, about 10,000 feet. But the idea would have a separate nonprofit entity operate that, so you're not adding to the budget of city staff. You would have volunteers. It'd be, you know, how a lot of, you know, art galleries actually get started. It would make it part of the public system, but it's just in a public building for purposes of, like, use the word, you know, artists, local artists, and have a place where people will go and look at it. Now, do I think the fundraising component would be significant? The answer is yes, because I did approach a Jewish client and asked him about donating. I was trying to just get 10,000 sent your way just to, and a week later calls up, so, well, here's a property I have in the Cottonwood area, and I'll be glad to donate it for that cause. But it really didn't work out to make a donation of a piece of real estate, so she ended up giving it to the Cupertino School for Autism. But the point is, when you bring that up to people, you just got to address it, you know. And I think there's a lot of benefactors that would kind of follow the theme if it's put together in an appropriate way. Anyway, the guy was very famous and very capable, just his life was cut short. Anyway, but there's other stuff too besides him. There's other, you know, art besides his, but his is, like I say, the better stuff is in Arizona, not in some gallery in Italy. You know. It's, by the way, it's a public gallery in Italy. It's not a private gallery.
Right.
Any questions?
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further discussion, Council? Okay. How would you like to proceed?
I'd like to proceed with giving direction, but I'm not ready to make a motion to approve any of this, but we've got to give some sort of direction.
Just need direction.
I think maybe motioning to direct staff to pursue due diligence on the purchase of this building, I think would be appropriate, but we're certainly not tonight purchasing this building. We're answering Councilmember Althouse's questions. We're answering all the other questions that we brought up. We're doing our due diligence.
And also, too, if there's other options out there to bring those forward, we haven't heard about those.
Absolutely, I agree. I'd like more information. I'd like to continue the discussions, but I do think that we need, as part of our due diligence, to look at our other options as well.
And I think a summary of minutes, and maybe if we can compile that information, because it certainly has been brought up by and discussed by former councils, but not this council. So I think getting all that information together for this council would be appropriate too.
And looking at existing and maybe not so, you know, pleasant options. I've brought up, you know, before, and not everybody freak out, you know, but the Safeway Shopping Center has lots of space open. And yeah, it's a Safeway shopping center, but there's lots of traffic there and there's lots of space. And, you know, how much space do we really need? And we talk a lot about infill, and this building is infill, but you're still infilling. And it's not ideal, but the city of Buckeye and theirs is not very pretty. They didn't do a very good job inside, in my opinion. But they're, you know, in that sort of a concept. But look at all options that are out there based on how many square feet do we really need.
I couldn't agree more. I'm not wedded to this building. If we can make it work, it sounds like a great deal. But I
Agreed.
also don't care about aesthetics. I don't want aesthetics to trump fiscal common sense, so.
Great way of putting it. Thank you, Councilmember Henry.
Any other thoughts? Okay. Then I'll propose a motion to direct staff then to proceed with due diligence of purchasing the Riverfront Commons building, as well as to provide council with information on the other options that we've explored in the past. And
Future options.
And clear identification of our need, if I may add that on there, I think that's crucial as step one.
And
And
we
not
do have a
just-
needs assessment that you've
Yes.
completed, yeah, and, okay, so to blow the dust off the needs assessment.
And not just previous reviewed, but possible other options. So you're going to have to restate it somehow.
And potential other options, longest motion in the world. Is that enough for you?
I think I'm a little confused on
Okay.
the other options. I mean,
All right.
how far do, we could probably order some double wides and.
I would ask, I guess, based on
put
our
'em in
needs
Old Town
assessment,
is
uh,
a
ba-
possibility too, but.
based on our needs assessment of 30,000 square foot, which is roughly what our needs assessment is, what other buildings, vacant buildings are there in
Gotcha.
Cottonwood that would
Okay.
fit that need?
That helps.
Does that
narrow it
satisfy
down.
Yeah.
your request? Do I need to start from scratch? No, okay.
I'll second that long motion, not restating.
So the mayor made the motion, Councilmember Henry seconded it. All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Okay, so the motion passes. Thank you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Tess.
Okay, next on the agenda, we have the consent agenda. The following items are considered to be routine and non-controversial by the council and will be approved by one motion. We have 7 items tonight on the consent agenda, so I'll read them in order. Item 1 is 1-year extension of the professional services agreement with SC Fuels for gasoline and fueling services for city vehicles. Number 2, professional services agreement with Salt River Extraction for biosolids disposal services. Item 3, extension of the contract with Patriot Disposal for 1 additional year for solid waste removal services for city facilities. Item 4, cooperative purchasing agreement with Texas Interlocal Purchasing System Region 8 Education Service Center. Item 5, amendment to agreement with Pineview Consulting for professional engineering services on the Riverfront Water Reclamation Facility project. Item 6, Fair Festival liquor license application submitted by Burning Tree Cellars, Caduceus Cellars, Chateau Tumbleweed Oddity Wine Collective, Winery 101, Galifant Cellars, and Page Spring Cellars for the Dia del Vino Rojo event to be held on March 17, 2018 at 1044 North Main Street. And item 7, special event liquor license application submitted by Thomas Schumacher, applicant for the Verde Valley Wine Consortium for an event scheduled for March 17, 2018 at the Small Batch Wine and Spirits Patio located at 1044 North Main Street. Are there any items that a council member would like to have pulled from the consent agenda? Any items that the public would like to have pulled? Okay, then I would move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Mayor made the motion, Councilmember Norman seconded it. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, consent agenda is approved. Then we move on to new business. Item 1 is interview of Library Advisory Board member applicants.
We have form. Oh.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I'm Heather Wilbur, the HR manager. We have 4 expiring terms for our library board currently. The new seats will expire in 2021. We had 6 applicants for our 4 positions available. We have 4 of those applicants here tonight to interview with you. The remaining 2 will be attending the work session next week. So with that being said, I provided to you the interview questions with the list of applicants who are here tonight to interview with you. Do you have any further questions before we're ready to interview?
The other committee already
Yes,
score the
sorry.
applicants and?
Skipped over that part in my notes.
And I've already done that, so
yeah.
I'm going to step down.
Okay. Councilmember Norman serves on that review committee, so she'll step down for this process. And I will go in the order that they're listed here in our packet.
Okay, and the two members that are not here tonight are Margot Mitchell and Nancy Imus. The remaining four are here tonight.
Okay. All right, then if I could, I'd like to call forward Connie Gilmore, please. Thank you for being here tonight. You're at a real disadvantage because you're first, right?
I have no idea what's going on.
So the process here is we're going to ask you some very simple questions, and you just answer the questions. And essentially what happens is you've already been scored by a separate review panel, and then they're going to combine that score with the scores that we do tonight, and then at the end of the day, we combine those, and we come up with a recommended number of applicants to serve on the Library Advisory Board. So we won't make any decisions tonight. That'll be made at another council meeting. So, but they're very simple questions. Question one is, please tell us why you wish to serve on this board and commission.
Well, I have completed 2 terms at this point, so I'm applying for my 3rd. I have enjoyed my service on the library board very much, Library Advisory Board. I currently am the secretary, and I also do the birthday cards. A job no one else wanted. No, I think it's important to contribute to the community, and it's part of my educational background as well, so I hope to continue.
Great. And what is your background in education?
Well, I was a public, a public school librarian for a number of years, and then I ended up at Yavapai College as a professor and an administrator before I retired.
Very good. All right. Segues into the next question, which is, what are your specific qualifications for the Library Advisory Board?
I can type on a, no, I'm sorry, because I take my minutes on the computer, but I have a library background. I'm an avid reader. We have thousands of books in our own home, but it's just one of my passions.
Okay. All right, and last question is, what do you hope to accomplish during your appointment?
Well, I would like to support the transition from the previous library director to the new director, Ryan Bigelow, and I was pleased to serve on that hiring committee. That was a very positive experience as well. And I just think that some continuity would be good for him as well as for us, and I'm looking forward to the new ideas that he has to bring to the library.
Okay. Do you have any questions for us?
I don't think so.
No. Okay. Thanks, Ms. Gilmore.
You know, everybody's support for the library, because it's just a tremendous asset to our community. So
It is. Thank you.
thank you.
Okay, up next is Henry Mellon. Good evening. Same 3 questions. Question 1 is, please tell us why you wish to serve on the Library Advisory Board.
I'd like to serve on the Library Advisory Committee. I've been wanting to do that since 1993, but when we first moved from California to this area, we moved to Cornville, and county only has, I think, 2 representatives, and each time I looked into it, there are no openings. But just a year ago, we moved into Cottonwood, and so and the question was, why do I want to serve?
That's right.
I feel I have been serving in a non-official capacity. I worked with Vanessa quite a bit, and I helped, I hope, accomplish a couple of things. And I'm really I'd like to be able to work with our new director. I'm excited about, he's continuing the emphasis on working with the children, and has some experience working with children with books. And also, a couple of things I'd like to, well, helped in the past accomplish one thing: parking is a real problem at the library. And working with Vanessa, some years back, we found 2 additional parking spaces. But I see a way that we could have 5 additional parking spaces for our patrons without any additional cost. And I'd like to be able to present that and explore that. Oh, and also the, all right, so that was one thing. And the other was the, oh, yes, regular hours. The last several years, I've showed up frequently on Monday morning or Monday afternoon or Friday morning or Friday afternoon, forgetting that the hours are different. And when I show up, the library's closed. I see other people, the same thing. I would like to propose and be involved in conversation about changing the hours a little bit, and I can see how this can be done without any additional money being needed, just by switching hours. I think that could be done so the hours could be the same, Monday through Friday, and then shorter hours on Saturday. It could be done without any money, and it would be, I think, a service to the patrons without imposing additional work or problems for the librarian staff, library staff.
Okay, good.
Okay.
What are your specific qualifications for the Library Advisory Board?
I've been involved with books since I was young. My background is education. As a teacher, high school administrator, vice principal, principal, counselor, both primarily at the high school level, but then the last years working even with kindergarten kids and youngsters, and then moved here. I retired from administration, moved here to the Verde Valley in '93, and was counselor at Camp Verde Middle School.
Okay.
And also have taught literature and writing at both the high school level and at the college level.
Okay, great. And you kind of spoke to it a little bit, but what do you hope to accomplish during your appointment?
Yes, parking, the hours. Also, I want to assist our librarian and the staff with continuing the emphasis on the children. And I never worked with kids until when I started counseling. I was assigned to a school, kindergarten on up. I had never worked with young kids, but fortunately, I was given an office the year before. It was used by the officer for a police officer, and he left a puppet in there, McGruff. McGruff became my co-counselor, and anyway, there's things that happen in the schools, but also in the library, working with little kids, getting them to tell what they think about a book, or talking to McGruff or someone about the story.
Sure.
That, and also one other thing, right, and I think I had a little bit of impact on this. For a lot of years, we didn't have some of the top newspapers in the country. I think the New York Times, Washington Post, something like that. But working with Vanessa a few years ago, we were able to get the New York Times. There wasn't money in the budget, but she was, found it for Sunday, and just within the last year, again, she was able to, without extra money, manipulate it for the New York Times. And I think that's important to be able to continue that. Maybe even have one other national newspaper, like the Washington Post or Los Angeles Times or whatever. So those are the kind of things.
Okay. Do you have any questions for us?
No, I just want to thank all of you.
Thank you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Okay, up next we have Jackie Nairn. Hello.
Hi, Mayor, Council.
Same questions. Question one is, please tell us why you wish to serve on the Library Advisory Board.
Okay, and just to put it out there right away, I had some emergency dental work done today, and so it's a little uncomfortable to talk, so if you'll bear with me as I try to go a little bit slow. I've been serving on the Library Board for the past year. You had a vacancy last March, I think it was, that somebody had vacated a term and you needed somebody to fill it in, and I thank you for the opportunity that you gave me to serve on the board up to this point. I'm very passionate about reading, have always been, and about serving my community, and so this was an excellent way for me to do that.
Okay. And what are your specific qualifications to serve on the Library Advisory Board?
Well, I'm an avid reader. I'm a writer. My first book is in the editing phase, so hopefully it'll be published sometime soonish. And I'm a lifelong learner, and I believe that having raised a child who didn't want to pick up a book, who just wanted to be on social media and this, that, and the other thing, that is very important to engage young people and get them to pick up an actual physical book and read and learn and enjoy that.
Good. And what do you hope to accomplish during your appointment?
Well, I would hope to help the library to further itself in reaching the goals that we set out at the strategic planning meeting we had in December. The library board has come up with some goals from that, and I'd like to be around to see those come to fruition.
Mm-hmm.
And so those goals would include doing something to expand library hours. The goals included doing something to have more space because we're running out of space in the library, those kinds of things.
Okay. Do you have any questions for us?
No, thank you.
Okay, thanks for being here. Appreciate it. Okay, next we have Cassandra Wyatt. Did I say your first name correct?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks for being here.
Good evening.
Okay, please tell us why you wish to serve on the Library Advisory Board.
Well, there are a few reasons. One, I have a small son, and I want to foster that passion that I have for reading and writing, and a library is a good way to do that. Two, I am passionate about reading and writing, and three, I want to be a part of the community and get involved.
All right. And what are your specific qualifications for the Library Advisory Board?
My specific qualifications, I work as a tax consultant for Ernst & Young as in exempt organizations, and I think that a lot of the skills that I use there can be helpful in providing different insights in budget restraints and other areas as well, to give a new perspective on things. And I also used to work at my university library in undergrad, and I think that that can also help as well.
Okay. And what do you hope to accomplish during your appointment?
Well, I would like to, as I said previously, I'd like to bring new ideas to the table and bring some fresh insight. I noticed in the previous minutes that there are a lot of budget issues and on parking and hours, and I definitely think it would be important to increase hours for the library, but also that could be a finance issue. So I'd like to be involved in the strategic planning and development of coming to the solution for those items.
Okay. Do you have any questions for us?
No.
No. Okay. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it.
Mayor, my laptop is not being nice. Do all four of these applicants live in the city of Cottonwood? I know three of, my question was really about Cassandra. I know three mentioned they did.
I believe they do. I did look at them, but I will definitely double check before we bring back any resolutions to actually appoint. I always double check.
Okay, and because these positions require that you live in the city, correct?
The fourth one lists no, at least on the application in the packet.
So could we ask Cassandra?
Yes, you can definitely ask.
Do you live within the city limits of Cottonwood?
I don't. I think I'm right on the edge.
Okay.
The city limits.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So go over the composition again of the Library Advisory Board.
Sure, the Library Advisory Board, I believe, has 7 members. 2 of them can be outside the city limits, 5 need to be inside the city limits. We do have 2 current members on the board who are outside the city limits.
Got it.
So the 4 members do need to be within the city limits this time.
And there are no other qualifications for serving on this? Specific qualifications, right?
Nope, just
Just that
5.
only 2 can live outside?
within the city.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, I couldn't, it's just not.
That's okay.
I think I'm on page 90 and I need to get to 191. So.
Okay, so again, I thank all the applicants for filling out the application, coming in tonight for the interview and going through this process. Encourage you, if you don't get selected, to please try again. And there are many other boards and commissions in the city of Cottonwood, many other ways to get involved. So thanks for being here tonight. We'll tally these up and make our decision at a future council meeting. Okay, thank you. Right. You are. Okay.
Yeah.
Then up next is item 2 under new business, resolution number 2932, appointing Christopher Dowell to serve the remainder of a term on the Planning and Zoning Commission.
We have 2 partial seats currently available on the Planning and Zoning Commission. And actually, we have another since we started this, so that's being advertised as well.
Okay.
During this time that we opened, however, we had 2 partial seats open. We had 2 applicants for those positions. One applicant, however, does not live within the city limits and is ineligible for that position. The other applicant, Christopher Dowell, does live within the city limits. We currently have the minimum number of members with a specific background in architecture, design, planning, so he does not have to meet that criteria. So for this partial seat expiring January 20th, 2019, Mr. Dowell is a qualified applicant.
Okay.
And he is here in case you would like to meet him.
Let's meet Christopher Dowell.
Okay.
Good evening. Thank you for being here.
Good evening, Mayor, Council.
Would you like to introduce yourself to the council?
Yes, my name is Christopher Dowell. I'm a recent addition to the city of Cottonwood. I just purchased property and I am a current city employee. What brings me back here? Well, my wife and I met down in Maricopa County, and she was originally from here. We were married in Clarkdale. I have some background relatives from here. My great uncle owned Williams Chevrolet dealership for years. And my grandfather owned property here. So it's kind of coming back to our roots after all these years.
Great. Why would you like to serve on the Planning and Zoning Commission?
Well, coming from Maricopa County, it's a very large area, and there was a reason why I moved to Cottonwood, and it was after serving as the acting police chief for the town of Youngtown. When I served for Youngtown, I realized how much I really enjoyed the small community and the closeness of it, which is what drew me up here. So serving on the board, I would hope to find, or help to find, the balance between growing as a small city and keeping it a small city, if you can feel my my pain there, because there's a reason why I moved out of a big city.
Sure, sure. Does council have any other questions for Mr. Dowell?
I do.
Please.
I finally got to the page, so maybe it's going to tell me. What department do you work in at the city?
The police department.
Okay, that's what I figured after you said former police chief, but I figured I'd ask. Well, welcome aboard.
Thank you.
That's it.
Any other questions?
No.
No. Would council like to appoint
Yes.
Mr. Dowell to serve?
I'll make a motion. If I can get back up there.
I know.
It might, it's really slow tonight.
1,000-page
Okay.
packet is
I'm
killing us
I'm
up
just
here.
going to read it right from off here. I motion to appoint Christopher Dowell to serve the remainder of the term on the Planning and Zoning Commission to expire January 20th, 2019.
Second. Oh.
Do we need to have Vice Mayor reference the specific
Oh,
resolution
should have
number?
referred the resolution, hadn't I? Okay. I move we approve Resolution 2932, appointing Christopher Dowell to serve the remainder of a term of the Planning and Zoning Commission to expire January 20th, 2019.
Second.
Okay, Vice Mayor Allen made the motion, and Councilmember Althouse seconded it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. There you go. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
For allowing me to serve.
If we could, please have the clerk read resolution number 2932.
Resolution number 2932, a resolution of the Mayor and City Council of the City of Cottonwood, Yavapai County, Arizona, appointing Christopher Dowell, a member of the Planning and Zoning Commission, and establishing his term of office. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Item 3 under new business, sample master equity lease agreement with Enterprise FM Trust for leasing city fleet vehicles.
Right.
Good evening.
Mayor and Council, I'm Rudy Rodriguez, I'm the Deputy City Manager. In front of you, you have a template of a master lease agreement with fleet management. This topic has been brought up on several occasions concerning replacing our aging fleet. This by no means that we are going out and purchasing vehicles at this time or leasing vehicles at this time. We're basically getting all the paperwork in place. Again, this is a template, and what we're asking for the council to do is authorize staff to go ahead and enter in this particular agreement once it has been actually vetted through our attorney. And just to assure you, no rolling stock will be committed to before bringing the numbers to council. This is just so in preparation for the future.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Rodriguez? Went over it, I think, in good detail at a work session. Certainly seems to make a lot of sense for our city, which is why you're bringing it forward.
Ready for a motion?
Please.
I move to authorize city staff to enter into a master equity lease agreement with Enterprise FM Trust for vehicle leasing and fleet management services, subject to approval of the final form of agreement by the city attorney. Second.
Okay, Councilmember Althouse made the motion, and Councilmember Norman seconded it. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you. Item 4 is cooperative purchase agreement with Cost Control Associates for cost recovery and containment services. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Jeff Cook, Contract and Purchasing Administrator for the city. What you have before you is a cooperative purchasing agreement to enter into, through the One GPA Purchasing Group, with Cost Control Associates. They would be looking into our electricity and other invoices to see if there are any savings that they can find. I spoke with Keith Lake, and he said primarily for our city and what we're looking at, we'd be looking at the energy and telephone bills, basically. So it's a comprehensive RFP that can do many other things, but this is just for looking into those. And then I believe on our annual spend, we would probably fall somewhere in the 29% fee range, which is in the middle. It's expensive, but they only realize that for the first 2 years, and then the city recognizes any of those full amounts for future years. So I thought it would probably be worth a look, and we're not sure. No upfront cost. It's all on a contingency of what they find. So
They get paid if they find great inefficiencies, right? Where they can save us money.
Right.
They get a cut of that, essentially.
Yeah.
Okay.
So any refunds they find are like 20, well, one of these percentages, I'm assuming 29% of any direct refund back to the city. Anything that they find that's an ongoing savings would be realized to them for 2 years, and then we get it all after that.
Got it.
And just so I'm clear though, we don't pay them for their services, so if they find 0 savings, just say in the off chance, there's no minimum threshold fee. Okay.
Okay. Will they make, oh, please go ahead.
I'm just saying, this is a terrific idea. I don't know how many times I know people do their cell phone bills where they'll go to an agency and they'll go through and say, here's where you're going to find the savings. Probably a long time coming. That's something that we should have done, and the fact that it's available to us now is wonderful, so we can find those inefficiencies and get them off the table. That's great. Great job.
Thanks.
All right. Yeah, I think it's fabulous. I don't see why we wouldn't go forward with it.
Agreed.
Yeah. Do they give any kind of idea what they roughly typically find on average with other municipalities?
There were many examples. It depends on the level of services they do. They do energy procurements and all sorts of other things. Let's see, I had an example from City of Tempe. They realized more than $4,000 in refunds and $46,000 in annual cost savings for future years. Obviously, they're larger than us.
Right.
But it's hard to know what you have until they look into it.
Sure.
And see what you're paying, so.
They must realize that they'll be beneficial to them, so otherwise they wouldn't be making an offer, right?
Right.
Yeah, great.
Did they come to us, or did you find them? I'm just curious.
We had been approached by a few different companies. This seemed to be the most advantageous agreement for us. It's through the one GPA co-op that we use all the time, so I think these companies are popping up and becoming a little more popular, so.
Yeah.
Very good.
Make a motion?
Please.
I move to approve the cooperative use of the Pinal County Educational Services Agency contract through the One Governmental Purchasing Alliance IGPA Purchasing Group to provide the City of Cottonwood with cost recovery and containment services.
I'll second that. So Vice Mayor made the motion, Mayor seconded it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion's approved. Thank you. Item 5 is Arizona Municipal Risk Retention Pool, 4th amended and restated membership agreement.
Mayor, Council. As you know, I'm president of the Arizona Municipal Risk Retention Pool. At a recent meeting, we renamed our Loss Control Committee to a Risk Management Committee. And as part of renaming, we went back and looked at some of the policies that we had, and we realized that our attachment C is actually extremely outdated. As you can tell, this is the 4th Amendment, and the pool has been around for slightly over 30 years. So it's not often that we go out and we amend our agreements. They just keep continuing, and we usually have a fairly good retention rate. We seldom lose members. But I did want to go ahead and mention that they provide our general liability and also our workman's comp. They also handle our casualty, so they handle all of our different aspects. Recently, on their nickel, after we had already started doing our appraisals, they went and appraised all of our properties and made sure that we had all of our properties on the listing. So we actually got a free deal, and we'll have those inventories available for us for our fixed assets. Let me see. The cost for our property casualty insurance is borne by the entire city, not necessarily just by the general fund. By approving this, of course, that continues our level of insurance coverage. They cover all of our assets, including our transit system, library, and our water and wastewater companies. All we're asking is that the council approve the 4th Amendment of this, and so we can move forward and get this off of our books, basically.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, Rudy, if I might, my copy of this cut off one of the operative reasons why this is coming forward. I don't know if it's in the same errors in your copies, but this amendment will now prohibit a member who leaves the pool from rejoining for 2 years, and it keeps the pool more stable. I don't know if you're seeing that in your packets. It's not in mine. although I saw it when I reviewed it. But what it keeps members potentially from chasing better rates and then rejoining soon thereafter, so it just provides a little bit of flexibility.
So this really hasn't been a big problem with us because we're very competitive. We have had on occasion where we've had a couple of occasions over the last, at least since I've been here almost 20 years, where we've had a member that will leave 1 year because they got a screaming deal from someone else, and then the subsequent years they get some real heavy spikes, and they want to come back in. And traditionally, we've always accepted them back.
Mm-hmm.
The pool also suggested, why is it that we are penalized that where they leave for a good rate, then they get hit with some claims, and then they come back, and then we get settled. We get stuck with them, and it's not fair for the pool. So
right,
that wasn't in there. I have a different cutoff point because mine says basically notification came through Bill Sims and Ed Ventel. That's where my cutoff came out.
Any other questions for Mr. Rodriguez? Okay, then I would move to approve the fourth amended restated AMRRP membership agreement.
Second.
Okay, Mayor made the motion, Councilmember Norman seconded it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion's approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Council.
Okay, up next we have reclassification of Court Clerk 1 to Court Clerk 2 in order to comply with requirements for the new statewide court software operating system. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, Judge Lasoto, County Municipal Court. As this indicates, I think we put everything in here that we really want to cover, except that I understand that there were some issues, some council members wanted to hear more about what the position would be required to do if she gets the increase. So Ms. Reardon, our court administrator, is going to be able to address those issues. I also understand at least one council member thought that we were insisting on only salary at the midpoint. We're flexible on that. But our position is that she's going to be doing all those extra responsibilities and doing clerk 2 duties. She should get something additional because that's not what she got hired to do to start with. So I think it would be only fair to have her receive some comparable increase in her salary based on all the extra duties she's going to have to accomplish. The software conversion program with AJAX through the administrative office of the courts, that's still, we're working on inputting that. And the time is right now to where we can have that extra training done for free for Ms. Gonzalez so she could get trained in the area she needs to get trained in. Once they leave us on this conversion program, then we're going to have to pay them to come up here, their trips up here in the future to train somebody in the future to do those requirements. Plus, we're going to be in a position of all of the monthly reports and quarterly reports we have to do. There's going to be times that we're going to have to miss deadlines, especially when Ms. Reardon is out for her surgery, and even just vacation times where time deadlines would be missed because we won't have an appropriate person with the training necessary to handle those duties and make those deadlines that we have to accomplish. That trainer's going to be back here in 2 weeks, so we'll be able to get all the training we need for her at that point in time. As I indicated, Ms. Reardon's going to address further the new responsibilities that Dorothy would be responsible for and why it's necessary to have her. And you'll see is that we have to have a higher level employee to be able to get the responsibility on this computer because they don't want to give it to just anybody, lower level clerks, because there's all kinds of things that you can do with that system that can be done in wrong ways. Like some courts have had employees that have gone in and just dismissed cases that were supposed to be dismissed for friends and relatives and that type of thing. So they need to have some extra authority within the court system and be considered a higher level employee to be able to get the credentials to work that program. We're over 17,000 less in salaries and benefits for the current year because when Ms. Reardon came in, we signed her on at several thousand less than what Judge Reardon, Jeannie Randall was, and then when Lynn's position opened up, Dorothy was hired in at several thousand less than her position, plus the related matching Social Security and taxes and everything that go along with that. I'd like the court to understand that we're not We're not here to waste money. We're here to try to accomplish the goals that we have to accomplish as set forth by the requirements of the administrative office or the courts. All the other projects that we try to do, we don't ask the city for extra money. All the security projects that we're doing, that doesn't cost the city a dime. You know, we've got the security camera project done with just court and answer money. We've got the court security management program coming in. We're going to do that with all this court and answer fee money. It's not going to cost the city anything. We have to do some barriers in front side of the court to keep people from being able to crash into the court as one of our security upgrades that we have to do. That's not going to cost the city anything. You know, lots of other departments ask for all kinds of capital improvements. The capital improvements we do don't cost you anything. It costs defendants who come to the court, and as part of their sanctions, they would have to pay court enhancement fee money, but it doesn't cost the city anything. Right now, she's getting a salary of about $33,300. My understanding of the clerk 2 is that the minimum is around $33,700. Midpoint is 39, maximum is 49. Obviously, we're not asking for maximums. We did request some midpoint, but we're willing to go less than that. And if, say, for example, if you wanted to go halfway between the minimum and the midpoint, that would be $36,500, which would be a raise of all of $3,000 for all the extra work that she's going to have to do and the responsibility she's going to have to take on. So if you don't have any questions for me, then I'll turn it over to Ms. Reardon. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I have a question.
Please.
Do you currently have a clerk 2
Yes,
at the court?
But she's not competent to handle that type of duties.
And why is she not competent to handle that type of duty?
She doesn't have the training or experience, and there's some other issues that we have to go into executive session for to elaborate further as to why she wouldn't be able to handle that position.
So,
since it's personnel related.
I understand that, but we have a clerk 2, and we have a clerk administrator who I assume is responsible for training all the clerks. So my question, you're bringing this forward as we have to do this because the person has to be a clerk 2, but we already have a clerk 2.
Like I said, we can discuss those in executive session. We can't. I'm kind of hand-trapped legally to discuss the personnel issues.
I'm just bringing up the reason you're bringing this forward is saying we have to do it because we have to have a clerk 2, but we have a clerk 2.
Who's not capable of doing that? We'd have to discuss that further. And if you want us to have only one clerk 2, we'd be happy to make Dorothy Gonzalez the clerk 2 and make the current clerk 1. And to be fair, Rudy's told me that city doesn't usually reduce salaries, so it wouldn't really be a reduction for her. And I noticed going through the court employment or the city employee manual that I think there's a presumption or requirement that if that happens, that they don't get a reduction in salary. Rudy can address that further if need be. But if the issue is you only want us to have one clerk 2, we'd be glad to make Dorothy that clerk 2.
So who then is getting? I'm sorry. Did you have additional questions?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm not clear from the packet then, if the AOC is already coming up to provide training, who is that training being provided to? Because it says that we're able to piggyback the trainings.
Well, all of the court employees have to know how to work that system on their computers. Every time they receive a payment, that has to be inputted. Every time they docket something from something that happened in court, that all has to be docketed. When a defendant comes in and makes a payment or asks for an extension, everything that happens in the court has to go into the computers, and every single person there has to be trained to do that. But this is additional extensive training that would have to be done, and the same person is coming up to do that training is capable of doing the additional training that Dorothy needs to be able to assist Judge Reardon.
Can I address that?
Sure, yes,
There's
please.
administrative rights.
If you wouldn't mind, Ms. Reardon, if you could just introduce yourself, please, to the...
I am Lynn Reardon. I'm your new court administrator. I've been there since June. And the issue is the administrative rights in the new AJAX system requires a certain level of integrity and expertise. It's not a simple system. In fact, we're finding it somewhat difficult. But it is statewide. It is mandatory. Our previous case management program, which is ASDEC, is been completely eliminated. As soon as AJAX comes in, the AOC cuts us off from ASDEC.
So this is a whole new learning process for the entire course system, not just Dorothy, not just me. It's, everybody has to learn this, but there are different levels to it. The basic levels are somewhat difficult, but manageable as we start working into the back.
Ms. Reardon, would you mind please pulling the microphone a little closer to you? Thank you, so we can pick you up. Thank you very
The
much.
back end of Ajax, there is certain permissions that allow you to do things like dismiss cases, change financials. You can't just let everybody do that. It would be an absolute nightmare for the Supreme Court if every single clerk statewide had those permissions. So we need some, this is more of a request for a classification change, more so than money. Although I don't think it's appropriate or equitable to ask her to take on that extra duty and those extra responsibilities without some kind of compensation. Doesn't have to be a lot, but something, and if you don't want to do it, that's okay. It's your decision, but we are bound by state law and by statute to meet certain requirements with reporting, with our financials, with our statistics. And if by some chance I would be sick or go on vacation, it's not a matter of having an automatic variance of a week or 2 weeks. It has to be done daily.
Thank you for that explanation. And again, I apologize for interrupting your line of questioning, Councilmember Oldhouse.
No, it's fine.
Did you have additional questions?
Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
I did, but now I have to think of, give me a minute. Somebody else?
Any other questions for Ms. Reardon or Judge Lasota?
Ms. Reardon has some other things to present too, but go ahead.
I did. Dorothy, Ms. Gonzalez has not been with the city for very long, if I remember correctly. You've been up here before.
June of last year.
June of 2017. And is it city policy to promote someone before they've been with the company for a year?
There is no policy that says when they can be out. It's always discretion of the council to reclassify.
Okay. And it's my understanding, we do have a policy, though, on when we do promote, that it's the bottom of the grade or 10%. And I believe you're asking for closer to 20. I know you said you're flexible, but are you aware of that policy, Judge?
Well, if it's 20%, 20%.
I said 10%. I said, I think you're asking for 20%.
10% of 33,300 would be 3,300, and that would be put right at the
36.9. We're asking for less than that.
That would be 36.9, and
you're asking for mid. You're asking for mid, which is 39.
Right, but I told you we're flexible on that because I knew there were some concerns from council, and that's why I suggested that if you want to go somewhere between the midpoint and the minimum, that would be 36.5. Your 10% on top of 33.3 would be 36.9, which is just $400 more than 36.5. I suggested that if you're considering doing halfway between minimum and midpoint.
The packet I had, it has the motion written as midpoint, which is 39. So
well, that's a request, and we have no objection to it being amended to reflect whatever salary increase you guys think is appropriate.
Thank you. Okay.
Can I give you just a little bit of background, just briefly, what's happened here? Last year, when I was appointed to this position, we had just finished a Supreme Court review, which was in some things we excelled, and in some things we were deficient. And those deficiencies, I believe, were caused by possibly the previous court administrator being somewhat protective of her job and not having these duties shared with someone else who was capable of doing them. So if she got sick or she wasn't available, then we didn't meet certain requirements. Having another person with these permissions gives us a check and balance. If I miss something, or if I'm sick, if I'm gone, I have someone there that's reliable and has the integrity to handle those things. And it's really kind of important because our AOC review, we had some things that were not so pleasant. We've corrected them, but I am not allowed to get sick. And I really do need to have surgery a week from Friday.
Any other questions for Ms. Reardon? Mike,
if I could add, the surgeries you can have could leave her out for up to several weeks. This is kind of an extensive surgery, and I don't want to violate HIPAA and tell you what it is unless she wants to share it with you.
No, no.
But we're going to be down our court administrator. Yeah, and we're going to be down the court administrator for 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks, depending on how the recovery goes. It's an intensive surgery.
Mr. Judge Lasota, if you could please keep Ryan from barging in on us by approaching the microphone and speaking clearly into it.
He scares us when he opens the door that way.
You want to summarize quickly what you just said so the
It's on the mic.
mic will pick it up?
We got yours. We didn't get his.
I'm not planning on being gone more than 2 weeks, but there is a possibility that, like the knee surgery, it may not work.
Turn that mic a little more toward you, please.
It may not work that well,
Okay, thank you.
although I have high hopes.
I think she's being over-optimistic, because I know the type of surgery she has to have, and she's a cowgirl and she's tough, but things take time to heal sometimes.
My concern, I think, is with the reclassification request, we normally receive many throughout the budget year, and we sort of take them as a whole and weigh the needs out of the entire city structure. Not everybody gets the request that they ask for, but we have a lot of different needs to balance. So I'm a little concerned about moving forward with a reclassification request without knowing really what the other needs are in the city. Also that we have a court clerk too already.
We're willing to change that to make Dorothy the clerk too, if that's what your insistence is.
That's what we're asking.
And I don't think that we should have any further discussion on that regard tonight, because we've not notified that employee.
It's inappropriate.
But I do have concern that we do have that position already, so I think we're just taking this reclassification out of context.
But having the position there staffed by somebody who's not capable of doing the extra duties that were required to fulfill by AOC doesn't solve the problem.
That's a management problem, and it's not our job to manage that employee. And that employee isn't here tonight, so I don't think we should be discussing it any further. I think the point is that we're taking a reclassification out of context. That position already exists. I see the need for it, but I think there must be another way to address that need when the position already exists.
But the bottom line is, this is something that's essential to the operations of the court. Do we need to be able to have somebody that's capable of doing that job, be able to assist, especially when Lynn's going to be out on vacations and her surgery leave and that type of thing. Those are things we don't have the prerogative to say we'll get around to it when we feel like it. These deadlines are ones that we have to comply with monthly and quarterly. And we need to be able to comply with that. And we're only asking for, you know, if you do the plus 10%, that's $3,000 a year. And we're $17,000 under what our budget was for last year, or for this fiscal year, for what we're paying for staff members right now. $17,000 less, and then we're talking about $3,000.
When is the training? When is this person coming back?
They're going to be back in two weeks. 2 weeks.
And you said, and Lynn, you might have to come back up here. Lynn's surgery is also in 2 weeks?
No.
The 16th.
Okay.
So what is the cost then of contracting this reporting?
Well, we'd have to pay AOC to come up and do additional training, because this is outside of their statewide training that they're doing to teach everybody the new AJAX system. This would be additional training they'd have to charge us for to come up and do. That's over and above the training they have, that they train all the staff members just as how to operate their systems in general.
We understand that. What we're asking is what that cost will be. As you stated, you're $17,000 under budget. So it sounds like that's something you can assimilate if we can do the training later. That's what we're asking.
But they would charge us extra if we come back afterwards. Well, she's telling me they'd have to go down there, but still with the extra money, we'd have to pay OC for the training.
But do you have a cost?
No.
How long is the training?
When they're here.
I told you not to sit down.
Don't sit down. Okay. It's going to vary depending on the person. I don't know. It could be 2 or 3 days if it's just certain portions of that administrative rights. It could be 2 weeks. I can't tell you specifically Depends on how much she already knows by the time she goes to that training.
And have you already had this training?
Yes.
Okay,
and ongoing, and it's ongoing. I have a direct IM with one of the financial advisors at the AOC. So anything that I run into that I have not already learned, she can help me through Skype.
And how long did it take you? Just curious, if you don't mind telling us.
Started on the first Monday of February, and I still need help from the AOC at least once or twice a week.
But how long was the trainer here training you?
Oh, they were here for 2 weeks, every day, 8 to 5, and they've been back every Monday and Tuesday.
Okay, so if I understand this correctly, I just want to get the timeline down. Your surgery is the 16th, which is a Friday, and the trainer is due back in 2 weeks from yesterday, which would be the 19th.
Following Monday, right.
So
she would be here on site with staff while I'm not there.
While you're not there. Okay.
And she's much better with Ajax and the financials than I am.
Yeah, but I think there's some benefit to having a current employee who knows the needs of the current court. So that also, is a concern that you won't be there to add your 2 cents.
For our personal stuff, the personal effects of our court and how Ajax affects our court, it's better to have someone there. And having the financial people or the programmers there on site when I'm not there is actually pretty comforting to me. So I won't panic while I'm gone, but.
And they'll be there just that 19th and 20th?
Yes.
Monday and Tuesday, and then if whoever is being trained needs additional training, then they would be back on the 26th and 27th.
They would come to me first, and then they would, if
Okay.
I'm not there, then I would have them contact my direct contact, who is Corey Anderson at the AOC.
And so you got trained back in February, you said?
No, January.
January. So, Judge, why is this just now coming to us right now? I mean, what was the delay?
Well, because we had to figure out what the system was all about and everything when they started transitioning in. We didn't know what was going to be required and all that. They just told us we're going to be up for training. We're going to transition the whole system over. We're rolling it out through the different counties, and each county you do a quarter or two at a time, and we weren't given all the details of everything that would be required. And now once they're into the system, they're seeing other things that are needed. And then we got told, recently, not too long before I did this proposal, that you needed to have an extra staff member who's higher level, who has the extra training that they'll get to be able to handle that position and be able to get the approvals to be able to get into the system and do things that other employees are not allowed to do because of the sensitive nature of them and the things that can go wrong on those.
And you're saying you just found that out recently?
Yes.
I'm done. Thank you.
I'm just going to put my 2 cents, and I think it's inappropriate to reclassify and understand the need. I think it's only 3 months away till we do our budget. I think 3 months can wait. You did save funding, so you have the ability to pay for somebody to go down there or come back up. I think we have other employees that you already have a Class 2 clerk. We have other employees that might need, other departments that might need new positions, so I think it needs to be included along with all the other departments and their needs as well.
Any other thoughts from council? I would agree this is a problem, absolutely. And I understand the AOC has certain requirements that they expect to be fulfilled, but I don't know that it's council's prerogative to play the calendar game and try to solve these problems.
Well, one thing I should tell you is our cases so far to date this fiscal year are up over 35%. We're getting a lot more cases coming in, and it's a lot more volume on all the different staff. And the revenues are there to pay for a small salary increase like that, just from a handful of those cases, but yet we're up 35%. January, I think if I remember correctly, we're up 68.75%, if I remember the exact figure. It was somewhere in that range, and we're expecting a high increase for February as well. And now that the police department is getting more fully staffed, then that leaves a lot more cases coming in. Plus, when they fill their other 1 or 2 positions, if they ever get those filled, that's going to add on things. Plus, we're looking at the fact that all those extra housing projects and everything that are coming in, that's going to add 1/3 more to our population. So there's going to be all kinds of cases coming in with all kinds of revenues to be able to support a small increase like we're asking for, to be able to make sure we have the proper staff to be able to handle this position.
And I understand that. I just think it's, again, we're taking a reclassification out of context, and I think it would be irresponsible of council to do that prematurely before we begin our entire budget process, which is going to be starting, well, we're already in it, but we have a lot of other reclassification requests to make. I think that there is a solution to the problem. I agree you have a problem. I think there's a solution to the problem. It doesn't require council moving forward with a reclassification request.
Can I ask you how you propose things get taken care of while Ms. Reardon's out on her surgery? And
that's not for
if no one has the
council,
training
Judge.
to be
Your
able to
Honor,
handle
with
those deadlines?
with respect, that's your and your staff's responsibility. What I've been sitting here listening, it sounds as though you have a personnel issue at the court, and you, instead of addressing it in a satisfactory, sir, instead of addressing it in a satisfactory manner, you're trying to sidestep the issue and ask council to fix an issue by treating one employee differently than every other employee in the city, or every other department head in the city that knows that reclassifications generally come, especially so close to budget, or are better addressed during the budget process. But I don't feel that it's appropriate for council to be addressing a personnel issue or fixing or reclassifying an employee because of a perceived personnel issue that you have not addressed, sir.
It's not because of that other issue, it's because we now have these additional responsibilities that a person has to have with the new AJAX system, and she's the one that's qualified to handle that within the court system.
It's my understanding we've known about these new requirements, though, for quite some time. They're not springing up on us 2 weeks out.
Not this particular issue, we weren't.
Okay.
We knew that we were going to get an AJAX system. We didn't know what it was. It's like saying that a new car is going to arrive in your driveway in a year, but you don't know anything about what the details of it, what the color is, what kind of engine it's got in it, or anything else. You just know that they say it's going to be good, and everybody's going to have to start dealing with it once that comes in. They don't teach you about what's coming to you. They just tell you it's coming, and you're going to have to put it in, and we're going to train you about it when it comes.
Do you have any other questions for Judge Lasoda?
No.
How would you like to proceed, counsel?
I wouldn't. I think it needs to come through the normal budget process of a reclassification of, just like we look at, are we going to add, police officers, or are we going to reclassify employees? It needs, in my opinion, it needs to come through the normal process.
Okay. Would you then like to make a motion to direct Judge Lasoda to bring this classification request back during the budget process, during his presentation to council?
Do we need to make a motion if we
No,
could move
I don't
along
think we
to the
need
next
to.
item?
Okay.
You do not.
Okay.
I mean, we have a consensus.
Yeah, we haven't heard from all council members, but.
I think we have. I think that there's a consensus.
Okay. All right. Then we'll look forward to it in the budget process during your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank you, Judge and Ms. Reardon, for the information and for bringing this matter forward.
Yeah,
and good luck with your recovery, Ms. Reardon.
Thank you.
Up next is a revised transit drug and alcohol testing policy.
Good evening again.
Good evening.
We are required by federal law to maintain a drug and alcohol testing program for all of our transit employees that are required to have CDLs, commercial driver's licenses. The current version of our drug and alcohol policy that we have currently is outdated, and it doesn't meet the standards that we have to meet by law. So we've revised that. This is the revised version. It has all of the mandatory requirements that the FTA requires, and it clears up some of the unclear areas of our current policy. So it looks quite a bit different than our current policy, but I think it's more streamlined, and I think it's easier for employees to understand.
Okay. Any questions from council? No. Okay.
Looks good. It looks real good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Were you nervous?
I'm always. I don't think that's a surprise to anyone.
I'll make a motion if
Please.
you're ready. I move to approve the revisions to the transit drug and alcohol testing policy.
Second.
Councilmember Alhouse made the motion. Councilmember Henry seconded it. All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Okay, motion's approved. Thank you. Parks and Recreation Department Personnel Reorganization, creation of a Range 19, Recreation Coordinator 3 position, and no replacement of the recently vacated Range 23 position, Recreation Services Supervisor, Recreation Center Operations. It's a mouthful. Good evening.
Good evening. Mr. Mayor, Council, Hezekiah Allen with the Parks and Recreation Department. We bring to you today an opportunity, a win-win situation, cost savings, and then as a result, we're going to make the Parks and Recreation Department more effective and efficient in what we do on a daily basis. A little bit about myself, if you don't know, because it pertains to this. I started 12 years with the department as a Recreation Coordinator 1 at $13 an hour and worked my way up kind of through the organization. So most of the positions on here I've worked in some form or fashion. So between myself, Richard, and the department, I think we come up with a great plan. Today we're going to present the exchange of a Range 23 to a 19, and then also the redistribution of duties. At the end, we'll request a motion to give staff direction.
And council, because I think it's important to differentiate this request versus the last request. What we're asking for, which we traditionally do with any vacant position, we look at it and determine if we can make that position more effective or save money somehow, essentially. And so what we're here tonight is to request a downgrade of a position. So there is money savings from this. And the other reason is we need to get this position filled rather quickly, since Ryan was our star guy on the marathon organization. So we need to get somebody in place to get this done. There are other changes that may require more investment, so those will go into the budget. Just wanted to make the council clear on this.
Thanks for the clarification.
Very much.
For council's information, but more so the public, on what the Parks and Recreation Department does. We oversee the Civic Center, Outdoor Aquatic Center, Rec Center, Tennis Center, outdoor basketball courts, hockey rink, skate park, and 2 snack shacks. We oversee a total park acreage of 115 acres. We oversee / participate on the Bicycle Advisory Committee, Verde Front, Walking on Main Committee, TVR Committee, CYC, Park Commission, Cottonwood Marketing Committee, CEDC, Chamber Tourism Board, Little League, AYSO, Mingus Swim, and the Clippers. The Rec Center has 4,500 members and approximate. We put on the TVR, Walking on Main, Old Town Concert at Market, Fantastic Family 4th of July, Easter Egg Hunt, BMM, Daddy-Daughter Date Night, OpGrad, Bike Month programs, after-school programs, summer camp, youth commission programs, Looking Good Cottonwood, softball tournaments, Little League basketball, possibly a wine event, more programs, and then 16 of the action items on your strategic plan. All of this with 13 full-time employees, for which we're not asking for additional. If you look at Ryan's, the Recreation Service Supervisor position that was vacated by Ryan, that position oversaw the Rec Center front desk, 2 full-time employees, 5 part-time. The department's admin assistant, 1 full-time employee. Sports programming, 1 full-time employee, 10 part-time. Softball, youth complex, and tennis center, 2 part-time employees. The fitness supervisor, 1 full-time employee, and 20 part-time employees. And then also the department's reporting as far as the business analytics. This is the current kind of older organizational structure where you see Community Services General Manager at the top. And then it breaks down to myself, Recreation Services Supervisor, Aquatic Special Events and Youth Programs, and then the former vacated position, Recreation Services Supervisor, Rec Center Operations and Sports. And then you kind of see it branches off to the recreation center, maintenance supervisor, and custodial services. So this is kind of the older, outdated model. What we're requesting is the replacement of the vacated range 23. Don't mistake, range 23 is really the range and the pay. Obviously, the responsibilities are not going to go away. We're going to redistribute those and replace it with a range 19. The upfront cost savings is about $40,000. However, like the city manager suggested, in the budget process, we'll bring through some positions that will probably, hopefully get reclassified because they're taking on additional duties from that vacated position. What it's going to do for us, it's going to flatten our organizational structure. It's going to make us more effective and efficient as an organization. And we're going to push more authority down to the service level, which is the customer atmosphere of what we do in dealing with citizens and guests. So obviously it's flatter. This is the proposed flow chart. You have the GM at the top. That comes down to the admin coordinator, who will now oversee the front desk, or is proposed, requested. Myself as a recreation services supervisor, who will oversee the rec coordinator 3, youth coordinator 2, fitness coordinator, and then maintenance off to the side. The rec coordinator 3 position that we're requesting, which is the 19, will oversee the rec coordinator 2, 16, sports and special events, and they have part-time employees under them, and field techs and officials, and then the aquatic coordinator, who has lifeguards, WSI staff, and cashiers. So there's a multiple facilities that's at Rec 3, 19 position will oversee. How we'll redistribute the duties. Rec Center front desk staff will report to the general services manager. Department admin assistant will also report to the GM. Sports program will report to myself, and then also down to the 19. And then sports, softball, youth complex, tennis center, and those coordinating staff will report to myself in the 19. Fitness supervisor will report to myself, and then the reporting and business analytics will come through the general services manager. Obviously, some of those duties will do to other individuals, and again, we'll bring that through the budget process. Even with those other positions that we're going to be bringing through the budget process, that's still a savings about $30,000.
So right now it's a savings of 40 grand, but after you put your request through, if they're approved, it would be a savings of 30.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep. So the department was able to, again, make us more effective and efficient, save cost, and help the city out in general, and still be able to provide all the services that you request of us.
Okay.
I would just say this, it looks great, and this is the type of stuff we want to see, and we encourage all departments to look for, use the Parks and Recreation Department as an example of what we want to see. I think this is great.
And just so we're very clear, this is significantly different from the last discussion we just had with the courts, because we're dealing with a vacancy mid-budget year that needs to be addressed, and I think that's compelling. And also, after your introduction, I mean, I'd be really hard-pressed to vote no. That was pretty compelling. So, good presentation. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's no other questions, then I would ask for a motion.
I can do it. I'm on the page.
I move to approve the requested personnel restructure proposed by the Parks and Recreation Department.
Second.
Okay, Councilmember Norman made the motion. Councilmember Althouse seconded it. All in favor?
Aye.
Is there any opposed? Okay, the motion is approved. Thank you.
Good job.
Okay, next up is discussion and direction regarding the sale of city-owned property. No worries.
We can take a breath, it's okay.
It's a bit of background. We discussed this many months ago, identifying properties that we had available that didn't serve much use anymore to the city, and the concept being we would sell those properties to fund City Hall, as I recall.
And again, it's probably not even an issue related to City Hall necessarily, other than the buildings down here, but we have several properties that we don't have a need for, and so it probably is a wise idea. Some of them would be very attractive for commercial use too, so it's a good idea to get it out there so it can be developed.
Sure.
But aren't we paying taxes on them anyway? No, it's a savings.
Do we pay taxes? No, we don't pay taxes on them.
Taxes? Rats, I'm gonna be a city.
You are. You're 1/7.
But I'm sure, you just raised a good point, Councilmember Piper. I'm sure there is staff time costs for some of the vacant parcels, weed control, things as that. So I think irregardless of
They're still
taxes,
costing.
there is still on the books as staff time, trash, pick up litter, things.
Sure.
Liability.
Liability.
I apologize, that probably took longer than it should have, but.
No worries.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, yes, Morgan Scott with Public Works, you're all familiar with this issue. You've already been discussing it. I think in addition to the things you've all recently mentioned, there's just loss of equity to the community. Right now, they're not at their highest and best use, and I think that's one of the reasons we're here today. So I think what we're looking from you here today is what direction you'd like to go, what parcels you'd like to retain, what parcels you'd like to possibly sell. If you'd like, I'll run through the appraisals really quickly without going through the values, and I'll just let you know how they were appraised, because a few of them were a little bit unique. The first is this City Hall property. How it's broken up, the black lines, those black lines are not the property lines. The reason he broke it up that way is because he wanted to give you the most options as far as selling it. You could very simply break the property up this way, do a simple lot line adjustment, and then sell it as those black lines lay out. For instance, you could sell the properties along Main Street and retain the rest of it. So we broke the appraisals out in that way, so you have multiple options.
So will you orient me there on that?
Thank you. I was going to ask the same thing.
Thank you. Yes, I apologize. So this would be Main Street right here. Pima, you have the Civic Center right here, obviously the basketball courts, the BAC and City Hall, and then the field, the youth center back here. So to the bottom of the screen would be Main Street and Bing's.
So parcel A is City Hall?
That's correct.
Thank you.
If the council chooses to sell those 4 parcels along Main Street, there appears to be some areas we may want to dedicate back to ourselves first as right-of-way and a few utility easements and those kind of things. They shouldn't impact the value significantly. So again, this is not necessarily how the parcels broke out today. It just gives you multiple options in case you want to retain parts of it. Last time on this item, we did not include the council chambers and the finance and city clerk's building. That is included in your packet today. Those are older appraisals, so they may need to be updated, but I think they're from 2011 and 12-ish. Okay. I know there's a lot of concern about the basketball courts. I don't think anybody wants to see the basketball courts go away. They're one of our best used facilities that we have in the city. Something you may consider, though, is their best location right on Main Street? Could they be relocated somewhere else? Obviously, that's one option for the council to consider. We talked about a lot line adjustment. The only lot I'd like to speak about individually, unless, of course, the council has any questions, parcel 406-22-068A is actually a small old well site. I was wondering if the council might want to consider not selling that at this point. It appraised, I won't say what it appraised for since that's not public information yet. However, you may be able to get a lot more for that parcel out of a land trade. So I would ask that the council may consider not selling that at this time.
Is that on this map here?
It's not on this map here. It is within the packet.
Okay.
What was the number again?
It's number 4 in the packet.
Okay.
Yes, that's correct.
Number 4.
List, rather.
And it's a small parcel. It's a hilltop. It was an old water reservoir.
Oh, I see.
It's located west of Cactus Street.
Right.
Oh, yeah. I know what that is.
Did you want us to take this map first? Just have a discussion around this? Okay.
If you'd like to.
I'll say, personally, I don't want to see the basketball courts go. I do think they could be relocated, but I also think that parcel is could be a great entry into the activity park there. So I'm just hesitant to sell that parcel as of now. I think we have a really unique opportunity with that vacant lot there to create, and this has come up again in the past, a amphitheater of sorts, or a place to have, a very nice venue to have special events, so that we don't have to close Main Street. We don't have to just really have a nice venue, a plug and play kind of venue where it would be an attraction. We could use it year round, not just for farmers market, but for outdoor activities for the community where it doesn't impact traffic flow through town. So I think that basketball court could be a great entry point, from Main Street, not just a focal point, but an entry point too for pedestrian access into that park. That's my opinion.
As far as those basketball courts are concerned, as you mentioned, that's probably one of the most used recreation areas in this whole community. I don't care what time you go out there, there's people out there playing. The location here is perfect. It's right on the main street here. Where is the relocation? Into a riverfront park where it's out of the way?
No,
I'm just saying as an example. This here is more valuable to give that small town feel than any building down here. This says small town to me. And we've been pushing that. And it's probably no big deal, but the Phoenix Suns did pick this location to renovate for their 30-year celebration. They renovated 30 courts around the state. One of the reasons they came in here and did us, because initially they turned us down, was the community turned out to do the concrete again, because it wasn't what the Suns needed to put their new surface. That was community spirit. That speaks volumes as to what this community is and what we're trying to make it right there. And no reason, this has come up before, and I bet you if you walk down the street and you talk to people of all ages, they have at one time or another been there. I take my kids there and play with them, So I would really like to see those stay, period, taken off the table.
Please.
Can I just, clarification for me, is that the 38-018 property? Which one is it there?
Thank you. It's the two north of the 38018. So the 38018.
You're going to say north-south. That doesn't work for me.
Thank you.
You need to say right-left.
Above.
Okay, thank you.
And I do apologize to orient the map. Up is north.
Thank you.
Sorry, I should have said that earlier. So the 38018 is the Civic Center, and obviously that's
good enough.
Not for sale.
Thank you.
And yeah, thanks for that. And I didn't mean to relocate them, get rid of them, relocate them to Riverfront or wherever else. I think that I agree that adds a lot of vibrancy to our old town atmosphere down here, and they are really well used. And my daughter's learning how to ride her bike on that, so I mean, I get it. I just think that there's an opportunity to really enhance the use of that park, and I wouldn't want to be stymied by selling off that parcel and having a building in its location where, the access to that park back there is really best suited off Main Street as opposed to Pima. A lot of people don't really realize that it's back there, but if we could create a focal point that would draw pedestrian traffic to it and then have increased activities that do give us that small town feel, we could really create something, special, even more special than we currently have right now. So, but I agree, selling that right now, I don't want to see that happen. I think that those basketball courts are a great asset.
Yeah, let's take that one off the table for tonight, please. I mean, personally, I don't mean to.
No, I'm with you.
We're all in agreement there.
Okay.
So then what about the larger parcel, the activity park? Do you think that we should hang on to that, or do you think that we should sell that?
I've been very clear, the last meeting, I think I was very clear in voicing my vision for the activity park as well as the youth center building. I'd really like to see, instead of kind of ignoring the asset, I'd like to put a little bit of an investment into it, because I've been having this conversation with multiple staff members. part of our discussion tonight also hinges on what is our long-term plan as a city with our brand, with our marketing, where do we see ourselves in 15, 20, 30 years? I think those two back parcels are key and integral to implementing events that will keep people coming up every month, every weekend, if we could, working with private, if we could work things out. Encouraging pedestrian traffic throughout all of Old Town. Also, having that empty green space. I mean, I shared this with staff recently. I have people who will stop in the office and say, hey, where's the playground? Where's somewhere for our kids to be outside? I'm not saying we need to put a playground there, but I think by keeping that for the city to incorporate as part of a Parks and Recreation master plan is good strategic planning as far as our tourism brand and destination marketing long-term.
Okay. I concur. Anybody else?
Fine.
Yeah. Okay.
No, I agree in that. Because we're a destination here in Old Town, that does give parents a break. That does give the kids a break from doing the store shopping and the window shopping. And let's just go back here and run around a little bit. No matter what, whether we make that an arts center or whatever, we have that ability to get that breakdown with the kids. And I like that because really there's nothing else except the Lions Park around the corner there to really get those kids to burn a little bit off. So it's parent-friendly, family-friendly.
And I don't mean to beat a dead horse, but I see the appraisals, and I think with just a little bit of investment from the city, we could reap so much more in sales tax revenues long-term than we'll get short-term selling this. Granted, I understand something else can go in there, another commercial entity, and we could see sales tax revenues from whatever it is that goes in there. But we don't know. It could be houses that are there. And I just think right now this is such a good opportunity for us long-term. And I rest my case. I think council's heard me carrying on about the activity park enough throughout the months.
It's also a really safe place because it is wide open. You can watch the children. There aren't structures for them to hide around and get grabbed or whatever might happen to them or hurt.
Okay.
And
so
Mr.
that,
Mayor,
yes, please.
I apologize if I can add that also. There's one other major benefit to retaining it, and that is all the floodplain issues. Obviously, we're trying to get Old Town out of the floodplain. Retaining that could actually keep our costs significantly lower because we own that. And as you've seen in multiple communities throughout the state, the city of Scottsdale's best parks are all in the floodplain. City of Phoenix's best parks are all in the floodplain. That's a great use of our floodplain areas because, again, a playground may get wet every once in a while, or a park or field may get wet. But I think that's a great use and probably a lot easier than looking at buying it back in the future to fix the floodplain issues.
Right.
Great.
So this sounds like the youth center building too, are interested in retaining that?
I think I'd want to hear personally, and I apologize, I don't know if you were asking somebody else to speak, and I'd like to hear more from perhaps Parks and Rec, what their plans are for the parcel. If there's a plan developed already for just the middle parcel and they don't need that, but I drive by there driving home from work sometimes, and there seem to be cars everywhere for activities at the youth center. Can you speak to that, please?
Mayor, Council, Hezekiah with the Parks and Recreation Department. I'm going to do my best. Richard, our historian, is not here. Really, this is dependent. We put it in the budget this year. We put it in the budget many years prior to do a comprehensive Parks and Recreation master plan that looks at the community as a whole, and then we'll start stacking like our trails master plan and our bicycle plan and all together to figure out what this community is going to look like 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the line, and what our investments should be and what our citizens. Really, that process is to vet it through the citizens and figure out what their thoughts are. As far as the parcel, like Morgan stated, it's a great stormwater retention area. In Arizona, grass is a luxury, and this is a great way to add green space in Old Town. The youth center, if council remembers, 2 years ago, we invested a substantial amount of money to bring that facility back up to speed to host our after-school programs and our summer camps and our youth camps and house our youth programs, which have been doing fairly successful. And we see them growing substantially in the near future, especially as our population grows. If you think about build out and Grossetta's properties and 550 homes and then the 3,200 homes and infill, parks and open space is vital to a community.
Okay. Then City Hall properties, I think we're those top three, right? I think we're agreed on selling those if
Correct.
Okay.
Eventually.
Not before we have a plan in place to move into some,
Huh?
not before we have a plan in place to move into a new facility.
For our
hopefully.
new house, yeah.
We'll have to move into, yes, the Ark.
We have a kitchen, we're good.
We want to show up, see a lockbox
Make sure we
on the
put
door.
sprinklers.
Hey, I do have a question, Doug. Where's our IDF, MDF? Is it across the street? And that's our computer center, you guys.
I thought you were cussing at us.
You know,
Sorry.
that's a good
Where is it?
Two places.
We have redundant systems throughout the different buildings, but our main center is over at the Emergency Communications Center.
Excellent. Okay, so when we do sell, we're not going to have to move a major IDF.
We'll have to move servers around. We've got one in our building. We have
Okay.
a compartment. We have them in different locations in case there's one of the
Outage.
buildings has a catastrophic failure. We're able to continue to function.
Is there room at the emergency center for more servers?
Yes.
Excellent.
It was made for expansion.
Good job. Thank you.
And the BA Business Assistance Center is at the 406-38018B. Is that building?
No, I apologize. That's the Civic Center, is the 018.
Oh, okay, got it. I'm sorry. I'm confused now. I see it now. Sorry. Okay. So did you get the questions answered for that?
I think so. So we are retaining the basketball courts, the youth center, and the ball field behind City Hall. So I assume that would mean that the BAC and City Hall or something would look at.
Right.
And then, I wasn't at the meeting where you all talked last time. Did we talk about this building and the building and the clerk's office, or is that next? It's coming up.
That's next. They're on the table.
And I didn't know if we wanted to go through parcel by parcel or if there was just something council wanted to take off the table.
I think we're agreed to take off that Cactus Street parcel. Sounds like you've got something else in mind, so
Right.
take that off the list.
I'd like to bring that back to the council at a later
Yeah.
date.
No, just the two parcels we discussed here, the youth center and the basketball courts. I don't know that we ever seriously considered selling those, but it's good to have an appraisal on them.
Right. Are we looking at the whole list that you gave us of 10 and addressing all of them, or just, are you bringing them up?
We can do either one. If the council would like, I can go through parcel by parcel, or if there's just ones you want to bring up.
Do you have more on your presentation? Do you have another
No, sir.
fuzzy map to show us?
No, sir. That's all I have.
So we have another map that talks about property over by Daniel Wright Elementary. That's just property?
That is an old well site, so it would be water fund if that was sold. It's no longer needed
Oh,
by
okay.
the water company.
And Daniel Day Bright is off of,
Located at the very end of Monte Tesoro. So this is located off Saddleback. This is actually out. It's outside of city limits.
okay.
Maybe just for the benefit of the public and posterity, just go down the list and we'll do it parcel by parcel.
I apologize, I'm going to blanket for just a second just because we were trying to keep the appraised values as non-public information.
Absolutely. I understand.
You know, Mayor, council members, in talking about this building and the finance building, I think the only question that would come up is whether when we put these buildings on the market, or if we do, is the council interested in retaining the public parking in the middle of these two buildings and obviously on the north side of this building?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's been recommended by quite a few developers, that
it's needed.
Sell the building, keep the parking.
Okay. I believe in our commercial historic district, we've waived parking requirements too, right? Yeah, I think it'd be important that council retains these parking lots.
Because again, that will require a lot line adjustment, because those are divided, separated with the buildings.
apologize, it may be easier if I just bring up the map without the values.
And so we've pretty much taken care of the Old Town area here. Now it's basically vacant land.
Mm-hmm. And was there anything added to the list that we last reviewed?
Just these properties here, finance,
okay,
city clerk, and council chambers. I did add in your packet, the appraisals for the rough cut, just because I thought you might want to see them next to each other, but those are the only things I added.
You know, I wasn't at the last meeting, so maybe you guys don't need to go through all of this since you did it at the last meeting. My only question is any of the vacant property anywhere near 6th Street, police station, rec center, library, do we own any property on that street?
7th, right behind the police station.
So I would have questions. Is that on the list of?
Yes. I do have, go ahead.
And how, I guess, is it big enough for a city hall? It's basically where I'm going with my line of questioning. No. I mean, because to me, I'm going back to the original discussion earlier, to me the ideal place for city hall is right by the rec center, the library, the court, you know, where everything else is within our city. I know, you know, other people might argue going into Old Town is the best place for it, but I would argue it's actually better. We have everything right there on 6th Street, at least if you're one building away. So there you go. There's my argument.
This is a 2.02 acre piece. I don't know if that's big enough for a city hall. I apologize. It is zoned R3, so that would take a rezoning of the parcel. But
where's that compared to the communications center and police department?
This is the communication center right here. So you would have communication center right here, the police department right here. Aspen Street runs here. You have an apartment complex here, obviously 7th Street, Mingus Avenue.
Okay.
So rec center.
So, and then we only own the part within the red?
That's correct.
And so the apartment, that's low-income apartment right there?
Yes.
In terms of visibility, this probably wouldn't be
right.
an ideal location.
No, I know exactly where it's at because the VFW is right there across the street, so I know exactly where it's at. And I would agree with you. I was just curious. I'd be more interested. There's an empty lot up on 6th Street over by the Patriot House which we owned.
Right. Okay.
Would you like to jump to the next parcel?
Sure.
So I assume everyone's okay with selling this one?
Yep.
Yes.
Next parcel on the list is the northeast corner of 6th and 89A. We discussed this a little bit last time as far as easements that we'd like to retain if we sold this. This is probably one of the more valuable pieces the city owns. The city's owned it for several years. Currently, it is 3.7 acres. It's zoned I2, which may not be the highest and best use. It may be more likely used for commercial use.
Okay.
And just to orient everyone, 6th Street right here, 89A runs right here. There is actually a triangular piece between it and 89A, which may slightly impact the value.
So why not consider that for city, 3 acres?
It has been. In fact, former Councilmember Kirby was a huge advocate of using that parcel for City Hall.
See?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But I just think 6th Street, that's our, kind of our main street. So, I think as long as we're entertaining, looking at other options for City Hall, in my opinion, this should be looked at as we already own the property.
We own the property, but you'd have to build the building.
Right.
We'll get you all the information. I think we looked into that, so we'll get all council that information.
I think that'd be good.
Yeah.
That way, everybody that hasn't been here for a day and a year.
Yep.
Yeah, I didn't realize, so. And it looks big enough, on the screen.
Put a bunch of small houses on it.
What's that?
Put a bunch of small houses on it and houses there.
Bunch of small trailers.
So are we okay then with moving forward with selling this, or did council want to hold off until further discussions about City Hall? I don't think this is going to get sold tomorrow necessarily, but.
Well, if we're looking at 3 months out for our discussions on the sale, I think we could hold off I think that's not an overly unreasonable period of time
Okay.
on this one, personally.
I agree.
Okay. Is that okay with council?
Yes.
Okay.
You know, and just to give, and this kind of relates back to the previous discussion about a city hall, but in checking with local contractors, you're looking at about $200 a square foot to build a building. So if you build a, 30,000 square foot building, you're looking at $6 million to get that done.
I'd argue that, and I argued this earlier, that I don't think we need 30,000 square feet. But
Okay, so we'll hold off on this parcel then for the time being, right?
I think so.
Okay.
Can't hurt.
It's not going anywhere. So.
It's, yeah. How long have we owned it?
The next parcel on the list is the southwest corner of First and Yavapai Street. This is part of the property that the city acquired a few years ago when we purchased the Gardner property, and we cleaned up that property, built a parking lot on the north parcel. We tore an old barn down on this parcel, and it's sat vacant since that time. I believe we've had a couple people express interest in this parcel.
Yeah, the gentleman who owns the building right on the corner of Yavapai and Main Street is interested in this property.
Exactly.
If we move forward with selling this, we may just want to donate a small triangular piece of right-of-way at the corner, possibly a 15 by 15, would likely not impact the value.
Okay. Yeah, I can't think of any reason to hang on to it. It is a valuable piece down in Old Town.
Interested, sell it to him.
Okay. All right.
Moving on. This is the piece we talked about earlier about retaining. This is the small piece located west of Cactus Street. You can see an old foundation for a water tank. It sits on the top of the hill, and that's the one that council agreed. We'll bring that back to you at a later date.
Okay, sounds good.
This is a small parcel right here in Old Town. So you have Pima Street right here, City Hall right here, the City Hall property here, First Street, Second Street. This, interesting enough, was the old community garden. In fact, we didn't know we owned it until recently.
It wasn't the community garden, it was, there was one person that asked if they could plant a little garden there, but it was not a community garden. It was part of the senior center program to have a garden there, and the food that was grown there went to the garden, to the senior center.
Got it.
Interesting.
For those that don't know, that building, a bigger building, that's now the winery and Three Kings,
Three Kings
was a senior center.
Oh, interesting.
After it was a church.
After that, it was a church, correct?
And it is a locally landmarked historic property.
Yes.
So.
Sell it.
Sell it, yep.
This is a piece that Councilman Althouse brought up earlier. This is an old well site off of Saddleback Drive. Right to the south of this is Daniel Bright School. So this is, again, outside of the city limits to the south of the city.
Oh, okay. Why do we need it? Yeah.
Let it go.
City Hall?
No.
Just say
I'm
no.
only interested in 6th Street property, not to
Sell it, right?
sell it.
This is another well site located outside of the city. This is south of the high school by a couple blocks. This is actually a flat, easy to develop parcel, zoned R1.
Yeah. Sell it.
Don't need that either.
Mm-mm.
This is a parcel that we took off the list last time. It's also an old well site, but it's next to and adjacent what I refer to as the Lindner Wash, and I think the council directed us to hold off until we know what direction we're going with that parcel.
That still hold off on that, okay.
And we actually didn't have that appraised at that time, at this time. Okay. And then we get into these properties down here, which I believe we've already discussed. And I believe that's all we have.
Again, we'll retain the parking lots adjacent to the finance and city council chambers, right? Okay. I don't anticipate that would hurt the value of those properties any?
No, I mean, you know, they have free parking right next door, so.
I think some people might argue it would increase the parking to have a public parking lot next door.
Okay.
We'll certainly make that case.
Yeah.
Second.
Okay, so those are on the list as well for selling. Okay. Is that what you need from us tonight?
That's all I need.
Okay.
Thank you, Morgan.
Thank you.
I guess, and maybe others are clear, I just want to make sure I am, is the council direction, because if we proceed with one of the models that was discussed at length earlier, you know, the city isn't bound to sell these properties just if it posts and publishes notice and invites bids. Does council want staff to proceed immediately with doing that pending further discussions and a decision?
I would think we want to wait to see if we want to move forward with this trust concept, in which case these properties plus the one on 6th Street would then be entered into that trust, placed into that trust.
Okay. I may have been the only one that wasn't crystal clear
No,
about
it's
that.
good to provide clarity on that, but I think we would wait to see if this other concept comes to fruition or not. And when we initially discussed it months back, we did talk about selling it, setting the money aside for future city hall, but if we do move forward with NAH proposal, then we might, you know, we might get there more quickly, I guess.
Get a bigger bang for our buck if we do it that route.
Yeah.
I agree.
You know, just to throw out another option, we can always begin to sell some of these properties too, put the money in the bank, and so we start to build up that money, get a little bit of interest on it, and then throw that into the trust as well, as opposed to the property, so.
So long as we get the highest value for the property, that's the main thing, right?
Exactly.
And that's, you know, and that's always the big question too, right? Are we at the best point in the market to sell, or if we wait, is it going to get better, or is it going to slide? So you just never know. But I think it's probably pretty good right now. It may get a little bit better, but I don't think we'll see gigantic leaps in value.
Well, the way residential is being built, I would think it would be a good time to think about selling them.
So again, it's up to the council. We can wait, or we can test the market, put some of the properties out there and see what we get.
I just think it's important not to flood the market with properties. That'll diminish the value overall. But again, I think if there's a way we can get highest value for it, if we have folks that are interested, then why not pursue that? Put the money aside, like we said earlier.
Yeah.
Does that seem agreeable to council?
Yep. If we can get a good bang for our buck, I'm concerned that if it goes to auction, we might not get that. If there's and of course I can't say, can you guarantee? No, I know you can't say that, but if we're going to go that route where we start selling the properties before we've determined whether or not we want to use the trust route, I would recommend only one property, 2 at the most, as you said, to test the waters, because I do want us to get absolutely every penny we can out of them.
And again, you know, the council is ultimately the final approval on this, and you can certainly provide direction that, hey, don't bring us anything less than appraised value.
I think that would be wise to say we won't accept anything less than, or we could even put if it's more than X percent, if we felt comfortable with that, but maybe just everything has to come back before us anyway, right?
Right.
So, okay.
Exactly.
So we're good, yeah.
So yeah, then direction would be not to accept anything less than appraised value. Okay.
Does that work, Morgan?
It works for me. And one other item on what Doug was saying, if we want to phase these out, then starting sooner rather than later, because if we do wait 3 months, again, no one knows how long this economy is going to continue for. It hopefully continues for quite a bit longer. But phasing them out, this is going to take a long process. So starting sooner allows you to dispose of some of them sooner rather than later.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay.
Mayor, for clarification for the minutes, the 2 properties that are on the screen are the council chambers and city clerk's building, and those were approved to sell?
Yes, but we'll give you plenty of notice, Mary Ann.
At least 2 weeks.
We'll give you 2 weeks.
All right, that's that. Move on to item 10, special event liquor license application submitted by Christian Oliva del Rio, applicant for the Cottonwood Chamber of Commerce for chamber mixers scheduled for March 15, 2018 at 403 South 6th Street, April 19, 2018 at 1329 East State Route 89A, Suite B, and August 16, 2018 at 1 East State Route 89A.
I have a conflict.
Okay.
Mayor, these are on the regular agenda due to Council Member Piper's conflict of interest because she works for the chamber.
Okay.
These are just 3 different monthly chamber mixers that they're putting in their special event applications for.
Okay.
I would like to just make a motion to approve or to recommend approval of the special event liquor license applications submitted by Christian Oliva del Rio, applicant for the Cottonwood Chamber of Commerce for the chamber mixers scheduled for March 15, 2018 at 403 South 6th Street, April 19, 2018 at 1329 East State Route 89A, Suite B, and August 16, 2018 at 1 East State Route 89A.
Second.
All right, Councilmember Henry made the motion and Althouse seconded it. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion's approved.
I move we pay the claims and adjustments.
Second.
Vice Mayor Allen made the motion and Councilmember Norman seconded it. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thanks.